Clint Emerson.
How you doing?
Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's cool to be here.
Thanks for coming.
You got an awesome studio.
Well, I appreciate that.
It is beautiful, inside out. I mean, do people get to see the whole thing? Have you ever shown all of it, or
On camera?
yeah?
No, we haven't shown all of it.
Oh man, it's nice.
Still
It's
got some
luxury.
secrets in here,
Yeah,
but I think they get the gist of it. But
it's got a spa vibe.
thank you.
I can tell. You're a man who loves massages.
Oh man, but well, yeah, man, I can't believe it's taken this long to get you on here.
Yeah, well, life, you know. But it is good to be here. I was telling your guys that you're like Oprah, Ryan. There's so many tears have fallen on this leather chair. I'm like, man, I hope I don't cry while I'm here with you.
Hey, same chair since episode 1.
Is it?
Yeah, man.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
History.
Same exact positions too.
You make sure I smell this chair before I leave.
But yeah, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, me
really
too.
excited.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Well, let me give you an introduction here. We're going to get more into that towards the end of the interview, but I thought that was a great opener. Clint Emerson, you're a retired Navy SEAL who spent more than 2 decades in Naval Special Warfare, including time with SEAL Team 6. During your career, you specialized in intelligence collection, surveillance, and high-risk operations in hostile areas, including missions involving Somali pirates, Al-Qaeda leaders, and other covert targets. You're also the best-selling author of 100 Deadly Skills, where you break down the surveillance, survival, and tradecraft techniques you learned in special operations for a civilian audience. Awarded the Scott Fitzgerald Award for Excellence in Writing. Since retiring, you've worked in crisis management and security consulting, helping people and organizations prepare for threats like targeted violence, kidnapping, and other high-risk situations. You are the only special operator included into the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
So, typically in these things, we start at childhood, which we're going to do a little bit today, but we're only going to touch on a small portion of your childhood at the beginning because this is all going to tie back to childhood at the end. So
Scary.
kind of the first time we've done something like this. But everybody starts off getting the gift.
Oh, of course. I think I tried these, but they came out of somebody else's Vigilant Elite gummy bear bag, and they were spectacular, so I will definitely be gobbling these down. I would love to counter you with a gift if this is a good opportunity.
Sure. We can do that, or we could do it later on, whenever you want.
Sure. I'm game. I don't know what works best for this whole, I got to get up and get it and give it to you kind of thing.
We'll wait till it's appropriate.
Okay,
Cool.
perfect.
Probably the second segment, but
All
I
right.
can't wait. I love gifts.
Yeah, got
So-
something good for you. I think you'll like it.
So we'll start with, where did you grow up?
Well, I am a born in Texas kid, but at the age of 8, my dad got hired by Aramco, and we left the United States, moved to Abqaiq, Saudi Arabia, where he worked for the oil industry until I guess I left for high school. So I grew up in Saudi, which was in the 80s during the height of, well, terrorism has always been going on, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. But it definitely was going on then. That's back when TWA was nicknamed, Terrorist World Airlines, because the hijackings and all the things that were going on during that time frame. And Saudi, with obviously, is a very interesting place to grow up as a Westerner. So,
I could imagine.
yeah, not a lot of fun.
What age did you say you went there? 8?
8 years old, second grade, all the way up to high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So, not a lot to do for Western kids. You live on a compound. It's surrounded by anti-aircraft guns, concertina wire. It's probably the first time I actually started paying attention to security, because I was like, well, are they trying to keep bad people out, or are they trying to keep us in? You're like, why do you have all this? Gate guards with AK-47s, and the concertina wire part was interesting. Razor blades at the top of the fence line, and the anti-aircraft guns that you could see out in the distance. And yeah, it was an interesting way to grow up. And you had a security force, Then you had the religious Saudi police. A lot of redundancy, you know, and there's always somebody around to see something, to ask you what you're doing. I wouldn't say it's a surveillance state because they're not that motivated. You know, they're some of the laziest people on the planet, but they definitely had all the resources in place that made you question, like, why you got all this, you know? And then you quickly realize as a kid, like, oh, well, there's a lot of terrorism that you heard about in the news outside of Saudi. But there was plenty of events inside, right? Khobar Towers was during that time frame, and a couple of other events inside the kingdom. And then you go, oh, okay, now you get it, right?
Interesting.
They're keeping their own out and also keeping us in. They don't want you wandering, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you don't have anything to, you know, bounce it off of, but did you like it there as a kid?
Not really. I mean, it's a radical Islamic state back then. You know, MBS since then is westernized Saudi, and he's really trying hard. You know, he's a 30-something-year-old prince of Saudi, and he's doing a good job, I think, opening the kingdom up and trying to create new venues, really following Dubai and how it's prospered. And I think they see themselves as they had gotten behind, you know, and their values and their dedication to the religion actually kind of held them back, you know, because they're home of Riyadh or of Mecca, sorry. And, you know, there's a lot of weight in that for them. And so I think Saudi felt like it could never actually modernize because of Mecca. And you have a lot of respect there still for the elderly and the older clerics and those really running Islam. And so I was there during the height of, you know, the most extreme aspects of Saudi religion. And if you look at Saudi as a whole, it was like 27 different tribes or clans, whatever they called themselves, all the way up till the 1950s. And then the biggest clan or tribe pretty much gained power and it became a kingdom. And ironically enough, the 1950s is when Aramco, you know, was established, which AR is Arabian, AM is American, and CO company. And started pulling oil out of the ground, right? And very quickly became one of the richest countries in the world, liquid. And but as a kid in the 80s, that was the height of when a majority of Saudis didn't want you there, you know? They didn't want Americans, Brits, or Canadians, because that's a majority of the folks working for the oil companies pulling that oil. And you felt it, you know? And there was a lot of privilege there for the Saudis. I remember my dad, he would get just so irate. Like if you're standing in line at the souk, right, to pay for whatever merchandise we were buying, Saudi citizens had a front of the line privilege, no matter where you were in that country. If you're a Westerner, you're the back of the line. You will always let a Saudi go first. And I always think, like, why aren't we doing that here?
Just going to bring that up.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, American first in line? Like,
Actually, I can't imagine it.
No,
because it's
never.
America last.
Yeah. But as a Westerner, you're standing in line for an extraordinary long period of time sometimes. And my dad, I remember he would just turn red in the face, you know, and I could just hear him under his breath, motherfuckers, you know, like just pissed that he had to let these people in front. It was part of their protocol. It was part of, you know, when you get briefed up in Houston at, you know, at Aramco headquarters before they put you on a dedicated 747 to Saudi, you know, they tell you, hey, these are the protocols. They give you all these briefs and the culture. And so, you know, and that was just the beginning. You notice that, you know, you are second-rate, third-rate citizens, you know, like even like the Saudis back then treated Indians, Pakistanis, and Filipinos. They were the slaves of that country, you know, literally. And even, you know, there was times we even had to get in line behind them.
Wow.
So it was, yeah. And if you didn't follow it, you know, it was all kind of like the threats were real. You know, you get deported in a heartbeat, you know, for sometimes the simplest things. You know, they don't care.
I don't think there's anything wrong with taking care of your own.
Right. there was something to learn. Now, being a visitor, it sucks, but now as an adult, I can reflect on that culture and go, damn, man. Like, but then there's the other side. Back then, women, you know, we'd go on base, or it was a base, but on compound, they had 2 restaurants. They had one called the Date Pit. You know, dates are very, dates that grow on palm trees is, you know, one of their biggest fruits, if you will, or vegetable. And it's got 1 seed, right? So what does that make it? 1 seed is a vegetable? Yeah. And so it was called the Date Pit. Good play on words, but it was kind of like the fast food. A lot of kids would go there. Hamburgers, hot dogs, that kind of thing. And then they had the dining hall. The dining hall was more of a sit-down kind of restaurant, but a huge partition down the center. And the women would go to one side, and the men would go to the other, right?
Really?
To eat. Yeah. And that's where all the women would go, because you even had Saudi employees living on the compound. And so you had to follow a lot of those traditional cultural rules and, you know, basically social etiquette and protocol. And yeah, everything was separate, you know, and it was always the women behind these curtains separated from the men, you know, and the kids would always default with the women. It didn't matter where you went, that's how it was, you know. There were a number of times that really made the living there unpleasant. Was that younger Saudi men, they're probably in their 20s, you know, and you got to remember, I'm like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, those age groups. And they'd go out of their way to like kick your ass, you know, and their favorite thing, you know, and I think we kind of joke about going in and out of the Middle East, but their sandals. Their sandals are this hard leather. And somewhere in their upbringing, they learn how to hit you pretty good with the blade of those sandals. They'd take those sandals off, or they got really good at throwing these things like a damn Frisbee. And they would, I mean, you know, 20, 30 yards away, throw that sandal at you, and they'd hit you in the head every single time. So I was like, damn, man, they're good at this. And those sandals, the blade of them, I mean, it's like getting, you might as well get hit by the edge of a plate, you know, like a, you know, dinner plate. You know, it's hard and it hurts and it sucks. And it's not to say that we probably didn't bring some of those beatings on ourselves, just being bored Westerners with nothing to do and cause trouble, you know.
So why did you come back to the States?
They only go up to the 8th grade there.
Okay.
So a lot of Aramco kids go to Swiss boarding schools at 9th grade, you know, for basically high school. Mm-hmm. So at that point, my dad had had enough. You know, once again, he was a Texas kid, growing up in Texas, kind of had that, like, I'm not going to let somebody push me around that long.
Yeah.
You know, I'll go make a decent salary for a little while, see the world. You know, as we all have learned, Saudis are not bashful when it comes to money, you know. So then, this is the 80s, they would make you leave the country for 30 days at a time. So they'd give you an 11-month visa. And on the 12th month, they'd give you $5,000 per head in your family and say, leave. So you'd go on a 30-day vacation and go see the world or whatever. And, you know, and oh yeah, by the way, stop and get your visas renewed and then come back to work. So that aspect of it was actually really cool. We got to see all of Europe one year. You go see parts of Asia another year. And pretty much all paid for by the Saudis, you know. And I always thought it was funny. I had this kid, they were Mormons, and so there was like 8 kids in that family. So can you imagine? They would take the $5,000 per head, and then they would just go to Cyprus and hang out for a month and not spend a dime. Nice. I was like, that's pretty smart. Yeah, just take all that money and put it away.
So what got your interest in the SEAL teams? You came back, went through high school, went to college.
Yeah. So couple things. As on one of those trips, you know, we were traveling through Frankfurt Airport, and the first thing you want to do when you get out of Saudi is have a Coca-Cola, at least for me, because all they had was Pepsi. Now they don't pronounce the P word in Arabic, so it's Bebzi. So you're stuck with Bebzi Cola the entire time you're in Saudi, because couple of reasons. At the time, Coca-Cola supposedly was run by Jews. The can is the colors of the Crusaders, red and white. I don't know. But they didn't allow Coke into the country, okay? So, they got a lot of reasons for a lot of stuff. And so if it's an airplane leaving Saudi, it's not going to have Coca-Cola. So the first place, land in Frankfurt, whatever. And we get to our gate. My mom and dad, my brother, they go stage themselves. And I beeline it to the little restaurant bar across from the gate. And the first thing I do is go to the bar and ask for a Coke, fountain Coke. And there's this guy standing there. He looks kind of like us. He's all tatted up and he's got a black collared polo on. Could have been Dick Marchenko himself. I don't know. And I'm a curious kid and I'm kind of looking at his tattoos. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, looks down at me and he's like, what? He's like, I said, that tattoo right there. He's like, that's a trident. I'm like, what's a trident? He's like, it's a symbol, represents, military unit. What military unit? The SEALs. Like, what do SEALs do? He's like, kid, where are you from? I'm like, well, I live in Saudi. He's like, what are you living in Saudi for? I'm like, well, my dad works for Aramco and he's like, all right. Well, do you remember when we bombed Libya? I was like, yeah, actually I do. Because, at the time, Vice President George Bush came in country. I was a Boy Scout, so I'm color guard, hold the American flag. And I'm proudly wearing my Order of the Arrow sash. And he stood behind the podium and told all the Americans, hey, in next coming months, there may be conflict. And if anything happens, we're going to have C-130s and everything set up for you guys, get the Americans out of country, because you are the closest country for retaliation of some sort, right? So I tell this guy this story. He's like, yeah. He goes, well, those B-111s had to come in extra low. And I'm like, oh, yeah? Why? He's like, well, so they wouldn't get shot out of the air and da-da-da. And he gives me a lot of, I don't know if it was even legit, right? He's like, me and my buddies, though, had to sneak in the middle of the night, and we had to take out the anti-aircraft guns so that these B-111s could roll in, drop bombs, and roll out, not worrying about any threats from the ground. I'm like, what do you mean you took them out? I'm like, well, we show up in the middle of the night, we shoot everybody on sight, and then we put a bunch of explosives on the guns and run away, and they blow up. Like, holy shit. Like, that's what I want to do, right? And up till then, this is the 80s, right? I wanted to be a ninja up till then because ninjas, the movie Revenge of the Ninja was like my favorite movie. I was like, I want to be
my favorite movie. I love that movie.
I want to be a ninja. I want to be a ninja. I meet this guy in a Frankfurt airport. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll switch over to SEAL now. I want to be a SEAL. And of course, later you find out, like, well, if you murder people as a ninja, it's called murder. But if you murder people as a SEAL, well, then you get labeled a hero. It's like just a matter of picking the right side of the line in life, right? So anyway, I switched from ninja to SEAL, and
I switched from ninja to SEAL.
And when we got back, I remember going to the library and starting to try and find these SEAL books. And there was I think there was one, and it was like a picture book. And
only one?
I think there was one SEAL book that I could find in that library, in the Abcake library in Saudi Arabia.
Times have changed.
Well, yeah, I've contributed.
I know.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. So
now we have a whole section of our
yeah. Oh boy. And so I find one SEAL book, and I think it was like a picture book, and it just had photos in it, like guys coming out of the water, the camouflage face, and the jungle hat and different things. And I started digging in. And man, interestingly enough, they had this career-oriented MS-DOS computer system at the school. And you would sit at it during, I don't remember if it was during class or something, and you would answer questions, click, 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 green screen, asking you a question, A, B, C, or D, A, B, C, D. And as a kid, it felt like 300 questions. It was probably 50. And you answer all, and then on the printer, with the green and white line printers with the holes in the side, print it all up, and then it would tell you, based on your interests, what kind of career path you should take. And sure enough, the top three, the first one was offshore rig scuba diver, welder, right? Marine biologist, and the third one was UDT. Didn't even say SEAL yet. It just said Underwater Demolition Tank, United States Navy. And I was like, huh. So then that led to looking into scuba. I found out that I had met the minimum age for PADI certification, which at the time was like 12 years old. So I told my dad, and he's like, okay. And there happened to be a PADI scuba instructor guy that would do classes at night. He worked for Aramco, but he was also a master diver and had all the instructor quals for PADI. And so we'd go to the local pool, and you do all your lessons and deep end and learn all the class, and you take the tests, and then eventually you go do open water, right? You go out, and this is the Persian Gulf, right? Korea Beach, and going out, walking out through sand, crappy, murky water. The Gulf then is the same as it is now. Go to the bottom, do your open water part, get in a circle, instructor's in the middle, makes you take your mask off, and then you got to clear it and all of the little things. And did all that, got my qual, and my scoutmaster, an adult who also was scuba qualified, was like, once he learned I was scuba, I was like, hey, do you want to go do Tire Reef? I'm like, yeah, I'd heard about this Tire Reef. It was a reef made of the tires that they use on the big desert vehicles out, they're massive. The tires are the size of this room. And it's a whole reef where they've dumped them, stacked them, and done different things with them that you can go to. So the way you get there is you go out to the end of a pier. We get to the end of the pier, and it is the biggest swarm of jellyfish I've ever seen in my life. My scoutmaster's like, yeah, don't worry. We're just going to, instead of jumping in and giving me the okay, don't fill up your BC with any air. Just take that leap. We'll jump right through them, sink to the bottom. I'll find you on the bottom. I'm like, okay. This is my very first dive. And so, hold your face and mask, take your step off the pier into the jellyfish. Of course, it's pins and needles, my face and my hands, everything, right? Pass through the jellyfish, get to the bottom. There he is. It's murky, it's dark, but I see him. Bubbles, okay. Give all the hand signals, off we go. And he has this rope that's along the bottom. And you just start going along the rope. And I'm right behind him. We're just pulling ourselves. And it takes you out to the Tire Reef. And we get out to the Tire Reef. You're kind of cruising around, you kind of get up, and some of the tires are upright. And you can go up, blow a bunch of bubbles, create a big bubble, go in there for a split second, clear your mask, whatever, put it back on, do what you're not supposed to do, right? And then we cruise around some more. Well, before you know it, I lose track of this guy, and he loses track of me. And I'm looking out in the distance for bubbles. I don't see bubbles. So I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm all by myself now, 12 years old, out the Tire Reef. So I circle this thing a half a dozen times, looking in and out of the tires, looking around for him. I can't find this dude. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll just go back. Okay. So now I'm looking for that rope. Well, I didn't pay attention where that rope came in on the reef. So now I'm on the perimeter looking for this damn rope, which I can't find the rope. I'm like, well, now I'm starting to panic. All right, I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? So I'm like, well, there's the surface, and I can figure out my bearings. So I go ahead and start to make the ascent, hands up, following all the textbook rules, which I just learned. I get to the top, break the surface, fill up my BC, look around. It's choppy, it's horrible, it's cloudy, and I can't see land. And so I'm circling in a panic, but, I'm only right here. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, well, kick really, really hard, get myself way up. And I do that, bobbing, basically, 360, boom, see land. I'm like, oh, thank God. Fill up my BC, start turtle backing. And it felt like it took an eternity to get back to that beach. I was way down from the pier. I drifted, get to the beach. 12 years old, your single little 180 tank and your BC. It feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. And I'm carrying my fins and all my crap and walking back. And he's sitting at a picnic table. Oh, hey, what's up, man? Was that fun or what? And I'm looking like, what? I was like, you left me. And he's like a grown-ass adult, And, but I tell you what, I probably leveraged that experience, and how many times in buds, like I'll Beehive, anytime you're doing pull comp, like that moment, I was like, oh, I've already been lost at sea, and had to figure this shit out on my own as a kid, and not that pull comp or any of that stuff was easy, but I definitely leveraged that moment. I don't know how many times. It's like, okay, you've been here, you kind of done something like this, kind of, sort of, at least once in your life when you were a kid. So you
Makes
can definitely
sense.
handle as an adult, you know.
A lot of people get blood work done once, look at the numbers, and then never really follow up. But health is not just one snapshot. The real value is seeing what changes over time, what's improving, what's getting worse, and whether the things you're doing are actually working. That's why I use Superpower. Superpower starts with one simple lab test and gives you detailed insights into more than 100 biomarkers. I'm talking about cholesterol, testosterone, cortisol, and that's just the start. The first test gives you a baseline. Then Superpower AI builds evidence-backed protocols around nutrition, exercise, supplements, lifestyle habits, and even prescription options when appropriate. But the second test is where it gets really useful, because now you can see if the changes you made are actually working. Your health is not just about knowing your numbers. It's about understanding the direction they're moving. And that's why people keep using it. 85% of members uncover early risk factors for disease, 79% uncover heart disease risk, and 49% slow their speed of aging. Superpower keeps your data centralized in one dashboard, so you can see trends across multiple tests, connect wearable devices like Apple Watch, Oura Ring, or Whoop, and actually make better decisions with your health data. Start building a smarter picture of your health with Superpower. For a limited time, our listeners get $20 off to unlock their membership. Head over to superpower.com, use code SRS for $20 off your Superpower membership. After you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about Superpower. Tell them the Shawn Ryan Show sent you to support the show. Pick up your phone. Look at it. Count the number of companies you've never heard of that know where you slept last night. Nobody can, and that's the point. Apps you're not even using are calling out to servers all day and all night, reporting where you go, what you look at, and what you buy. Glacier's Secure DNS cuts those calls off before they connect. Not after, before. It's the same grade of protection people with clearances carry, built by the guys who used to build it for them. And you don't manage it. Open the app once, hit the button, close it. Glacier. Download it today on the App Store. And remember, privacy isn't paranoia, it's protection. What did you go to school for? I mean, if you learned that early on, that's what you wanted to do, then why did you wind up going to college?
So, good question, man. I always wanted to go to the Navy. I just didn't have the balls to like actually sign up, you know, and I didn't know. You know, back then there was no information. There's no internet or anything to leverage to like, okay, well, how do you become a Navy SEAL? You know? I ended up going to University of Houston, of all places, and I ended up meeting a guy, Rick and Brian, but Rick was the guy I met, and he had been to Buds. I was like, and he was like this gold mine of information. And I was like, so tell me all about it. And he's like, well, he told me as far as he made it, which was like Hell Week or whatever it was, and he ended up having an injury and ended out of the Navy. So he could only give me so much, but he gave me enough to know that, okay, you got to be able to do push-ups, pull-ups, this, and that, and you just go to a Navy recruiter and sign up. And I was like, okay. So once I learned the, very basics, and I started working out with this guy, and then we pulled in another guy, Brian, and then the three of us were like, well, I kind of motivated them in a weird way. They're like, well, why don't we just all go in together? I was like, you would go in again? It's like, fuck yeah. So we went to the Navy recruiter, and at this point, I had maybe a semester left on my degree. I was like, hell, got to scratch it, right? So we go to Navy recruiter, we sign up, and I didn't tell anybody I didn't tell my family or anybody, because my dad, he was like big on college, finished college, da-da-da. But I was like, screw it, I'm going. We signed the dotted lines, and about 2 weeks from leaving to go to Chicago for boot camp, told my parents. Of course, my mom cries, and my dad was kind of like, what? I was like, yeah, it's going to happen. He's like, all right. And, off we went. The three of us went to boot camp at Great Lakes at Christmas. Left right before Christmas. It was great.
Right on.
Sideways snow, learning how to march. You know the deal. Spend 8 weeks learning how to march and make your bed. That's Navy boot camp.
Yep.
Right? And then A school, I picked corpsman. I was going to school for kinesiology. That you asked that. Yeah. So I thought, oh, it's like sports medicine, you know. Kind of had an interest in medicine from doing my first aid merit badge. And then I realized basically Navy corpsman school basically is the Boy Scout first aid merit badge. It's 3 months. You learn really nothing, you know. You learn how to take pulse and count breaths and maybe stop bleeding of some sort. And then you show up to San Diego, Bud's class 203.
203. What year is this?
95.
95.
I think that started in 95, graduated in 96. No, started in 96, graduated in 96. Fuck, I don't know. 95 to 96, I think. Yeah.
What'd you think of Bud's?
Bud's is, you've had enough guys. So the only thing unique for me is my true name is Smith, right? Everybody has a pen name, right? And so we started with 180 something guys in our class. And there was probably 5 or 6 Smiths. Okay. And as you know, at the end of every day of first phase, you go to the first phase classroom and you sign deficiency chits. I was C Smith on the list. So of course I ended up with every deficiency chit for all the other Smiths every single day.
Damn.
And what is the one word we're only allowed to say all through Bud's? Hoo-yah. So mine always had a question mark at the end. You know, they'd say, Smith, push-ups. And then they'd pull out another deficiency, pull-ups. Another one for, you know, the O course, the swim, the run. And I'd go up there, hoo-yah, and sign every single one of them. There was like, 4 to 6 a day. Where eventually a couple of the instructors are like, pull me aside with this other kid, Garcia, and they're like, hey, you two suck. You guys are horrible. I mean, I don't understand why you show up to this course and you can't do push-ups, pull-ups, you suck at the O course, you suck at runs, you suck at swims. Remediation. I want you to show up at the first phase office when the day is done every day from here on out. And this was an instructor who was fresh out of SEAL Team 6. He had a reputation for being wired a little tight. And he looked exactly like Richard Gere. And anybody from my era who hears this knows exactly who I'm talking about. And I remember showing up like, holy, this is going to suck, right? Show up, first phase office, right next to the bell. You're staring at that bell. He comes out. He's got a big old dip in. He's spitting. You're on the grinder. Hold on a second. Goes back inside, grabs his lawn chair, folds this thing out. And we're like, I kind of look over at Garcia and I'm like, we're in this for the long haul, man. This is going to suck. And he's like, 8-count bodybuilders, begin. And we just start going. About 30 minutes into it, which is a long time doing 8-count bodybuilder. He's like, go hit the surf. And so we take off like, oh, thank God. And that's a long run to the berm, over the berm, into the ocean, back, get wet and sandy, the whole thing, come back. Push-ups, ready, begin. Start doing push. 8-count bodybuilders, begin. Pull-ups, begin. Fireman squats. Putting him on my shoulders, doing squats. Putting on his shoulders, doing squats. Fireman carry to the surf, switch, come back. So I carry him to the surf. We dump him in the water, get wet and sandy. Now he puts me on his shoulders, go back. And this goes on, and it's starting to get dark. And I'm like, dude, they're going to... And while we're whispering to each other, and then definitely while we're hitting the surf, we're like, dude, they're going to try and make us quit. This is going to suck, Don't quit. Okay, don't quit. Yeah. And this goes on every day of first phase for me and Garcia. And we get about... before Hell Week, and Hell Week at that time was the 6th week of Bud's. So we're probably week 4 of getting my ass handed to me after every day. And at this point, a couple other Smiths had quit finally. I was like, thank God, because these guys were screwing me over every day. And so Garcia, we're doing push-ups, and he decides to cross his feet for some reason. Instead of at attention, ankles side by side, he crosses, which is what instructors would do, right? They'd cross their foot doing push-ups. And the instructor gets out of that lawn chair and tie kicks him so hard in the ankle, snaps it, breaks the kid's ankle.
No shit.
And I'm like, oh God, just keep doing push-ups. Keep doing push-ups. Don't look. I didn't see anything. And then there was a hesitation. The instructor's like, keep going, get your feet right. And he couldn't get that ankle to do what he needed it to do, right? And he's like, take him to the surf zone. So I throw him on my shoulders, fireman carry him to the surf zone, throw him in. And this kid's borderline crying. He's like, not crying because of pain. He's crying because he knows that he's not going to be able to continue, and it hits him hard. And he goes, dude, I think he broke my fucking ankle. And I'm like, I think I heard something snap, but put some weight on it. He kind of puts weight on it. It kind of gives. And he's just like, and the thing starts swelling up. I mean,
shit.
Throw him on my shoulders to bring him back. And then instructor's like, no, you carry. You were supposed to switch. Couldn't do it. He couldn't even get me on his shoulders. He couldn't even stand. And so the beating stopped at that point. He's like, go, put ice on it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Next day, he goes to medical and never to see him again. I don't even know where that kid went. And that was the end of his career. Crazy part is we get through Hell Week. We get to dive phase. And I remember it was like day 1 or 2 of dive phase. The first phase instructors come in with second phase instructors, and they're like, everybody drop in the whole room, right? We drop and we knock out whatever the required push-up is. What is it in diet 40? You get bumped up from 30 to 40 or
Man, I cannot remember.
Whatever it is. So we knock out our push-ups. Now we're still in the lean and rest. And one instructor is like, all right, whoever witnessed instructor so-and-so hit a student a couple of weeks ago, stand up. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Stay in the front lean and rest. And then they go on, start beating us. And to where the class leader's even like, whoever it was, just identify yourself. Nope. I am not going down this path. I just held on to it, man. And they beat us a couple of times during first phase. And I remember one night we got back from one of the first night dives. We still got the twin 180s on. We still got our rubber on. And it was like, once again, who was the man who saw an instructor in first phase hit another student? And I was like, I'm not doing it, not giving it up. And so they made us put our fins, one in your left hand, one in your right hand, filled up our masks with water, and then we did the death march with our twin 180s on all the way down to the demo pits, which is, I think it's 1.5 miles down there, 1.5 miles, so it's 3 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have your hands out, fins out, mask full of water, soft sand, march, twin 180s in rubber. And everybody in that class at that point was basically like, whoever it was, give it up, just tell them. Nope. This is the first time actually I'm kind of like saying it out loud. What's funny is fast forward 10 plus years, where the hell was I? I was in some East Coast locker room, and there he was. And he's a warrant now.
No shit.
Instructor, yeah. And I went up to him and said, I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty sure I saved your ass when you were a BUD/S instructor. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, oh, yeah, why? I was like, do you remember me? And he's like, looking at me, and I don't know, yeah, you look kind of familiar. We crossed paths, overseas, wherever. I'm like, nope, it was BUD/S. BUD/S class 203. And there was just this moment, and then he's like, his eyes got a little bigger, and I could see a little bit more of the whites in his eyes. He's like, holy fuck, yeah. He's like, I almost got shit canned for that shit, man. You were the guy that never came forward. I was like, yeah. And we kind of laughed, It's like a big thing, But yeah, full circle. You know, that was probably the highlight of Buds, other than my troublemaking side. You know, I carried a handy cam from first phase all the way through and made a video of our Buds class. I snuck that thing around the whole time.
Damn, no shit.
And then had it edited out in town in San Diego, and they pieced it all together and gave everybody, back then it was cassettes, VHS cassettes. Everyone got one when we graduated, and it had all these moments. I'd set the camera once, like in our cage. Remember the cage area out on the beach? So I set the camera up there and hit record, and we were just getting our asses handed to us out on the beach. And then there was a time where the instructors had us in the dip tanks, you know, trying to freeze us. You know, and I'd gone and set the camera up while we got our asses handed then. And
Oh shit! Do you still have that?
I do. I have all the footage somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I had something like that.
Oh yeah, it was a thing, you know. And then later I had it burned to DVD, and that's what I have left. Now I'm like, where's a DVD player? Yeah, that was Buds.
Right on.
Them looking for me.
Right on.
Yeah, getting my ass handed to me, and the beatings after first phase didn't end until then. Finally, when the last Smith quit, they stopped. No more deficiency chits. Yeah,
Right on.
it's crazy.
Where did you want to go from there?
I always wanted to go to Team 3.
Why?
Well, growing up in Saudi and not liking the culture, and that was before Force 21, you know. So Force 21 is when the community was restructured so that everybody deployed everywhere. Prior to that, the teams were all regionally focused. So SEAL Team 3 was the Middle East. And so that little kid in me, right, was like, I'm going to come back someday and fuck with these people, you know?
Right.
And so that was the driving factor, you know, that 8-year-old Clint, man. It's like, you think about how powerful that is when things happen to you when you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
So you fast forward to us being in Iraq, and I remember looking at this kid, probably around 8 years old, looking at me with evil eyes, going, well, guess what I had? I had options. 8-year-old, I can be a doctor, I could be an attorney, I could do whatever the hell I want. And what did I do? I stuck with that passion that was put there when I was a kid.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now you look at these kids and you're like, what opportunities they have?
It's a damn good point.
Zip and zero, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those moments of reflection, right?
You know, a lot of people want to know, they always want to know, you know, what got you through Buds? What was it?
Man, in the moment, it was just pure desire to be better than who I was at the time. Like I saw myself before I went in the Navy, I was just going down. Even though I was in college, I just felt like a loser, you know? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had SEAL on the brain since I was a kid. And so I just felt like I was destined to be a loser. And I was like, man, I'm going to do everything and anything in my power to prevent that. And needed to prove it to myself more than anything. And, you know, and I think like a lot of us that come from like broken homes, we're just trying to prove to ourselves on a regular basis that we're worthy and that we can be better than what we are. And then the minute you achieve it, you're looking for the next thing to be better because it only satisfies you for about the 30 seconds you get that trident punched into your chest. And then you're like, I'm a fucking loser still. I'm a fucking loser, you know? And then you can make it to a national agency and be like, I'm still a fucking loser. Then you can get to a tier 1 command and be like, yep, I'm still a fucking loser. And that's the drive. And it's sometimes I feel like it's still there today. Just a fucking loser. And you're just trying to prove that you're not every single day, you know?
Are you proving it to yourself or are you proving it to somebody else?
Well, I think early on, I was probably doing it. I didn't even realize it. You know, you're definitely not doing it for yourself, right? I think early on, I was trying to prove it to family and friends and this and that. And then you get older, get a little wiser, and you start reflecting a little more, and you go, okay, yeah, I'm definitely just trying to
Who in your family were you trying to prove it to?
What's that?
Who in your family were you trying to prove it to?
I think early on, I was like, oh, just even for my little brother, give him like, hey, him be proud of me kind of thing, or my mom or your dad or your friends, maybe even, who I was engaged to at the time, stuff like that. You're kind of like, but it's not till later you realize, no, I wasn't. I was definitely proving it to myself, but telling myself a different story,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think, that childhood stuff is sticky,
Yeah.
for all of us. You look at the community, it's what? Some crazy, I don't even know if it's been proved, but you hear it all the time, like, oh, 95 or 90% are from broken homes. And that's special operations as a whole.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But I mean, I've learned that in here.
Would you say almost everybody? Has anybody come from like a normal home? You?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
So mom, dad stayed married, everything's happy?
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that is an anomaly. And Mike, Ritland.
Yeah. My parents been married for 50 years.
Yeah.
But I know I'm an anomaly,
Yeah.
because the majority of the guys that come in here, it's child abuse, sexual abuse. Like I had no idea how common all those things actually were until I started doing this. And, the majority of guys and women, that have been on the show have been through that at some point in their childhood, if not the entire time. And man, I think that's one of my, I mean, it sucks to hear it, but it's also, I think it's a beacon of light because I do realize how common it is. And that means millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of kids are going through it right now. And, and they see this and they see, that there's a way out of that can be a tremendous success. And so I think it's a beacon of hope. I hope it is.
Right.
To a lot of those kids that are going through that.
And you don't know any of it at the time. You think that's normal. Yeah. That is your norm. Whatever your parents or your priest or whatever it is that's going on in your life, you think it's the norm until you realize one day that it wasn't, but until then, it's like almost like a superpower. It can drive you and you don't even know it,
I felt like a loser too. I think that's what got me through.
Yeah.
But I know that's what got me through. I didn't even give a shit about being a SEAL after a while. Yeah. I was just like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
But I know you you had a loss right at graduation, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, we graduated buds and went to 18 Delta, checked into, is that the order? Yeah, 18 Delta, then jump school, then checked into SEAL Team 3. And checked into SEAL Team 3, and as you know, back then, STT was what is now SQT. And it was all handled in-house, and each SEAL team had its own training cell. Had gone through STT, was on the tail end of it, and had just jumped into a platoon. And this is back when your platoon decided when you got your Trident. And is the 4th of July demonstration. New guys are usually the ones that get chosen to go do the frogman version or all the frogman tasks. So mine was the frogman, Draeger, diver, 3 of us online coming out of the water with our guns and looking cool and walking through the crowd of people that are there for the rest of the 4th of July demonstration stuff. And it's that morning, my mom and dad had come to visit and they were going to watch the demonstration. And so, actually it was the day before. It was the 3rd of July. And my dad had gotten up that morning, and I lived in a condo in downtown San Diego. And so you could like walk down the street, get a newspaper kind of thing. So he walks down and never comes back. And so cell phones were still in their infancy then. you had landline. I don't even remember if there was a cell phone involved. Either way, made, communication far difficult than what it is now. And so he left, he didn't come back. Time goes by. I had to go I knew I was pressed for time on the rehearsal stuff, but it got to the point where it was like concerning. I had already driven the neighborhood. I'm looking for him. It's like, I don't know, he's a very squared away dude. Like, he didn't get lost. He may have gotten distracted looking at like architecture homes and stuff because he was an engineer kind of guy. No, that wouldn't be it, and you kind of do this process of elimination, creating excuses, driving around, starting to stress. And then by the time I get home, somebody had called the landline. It was my dad's brother and says, hey, your dad is at the hospital. I'm like, is he okay? And they're like, yeah, I heard him in the background. I'm like, oh, huh. Did he say what happened? No. I'm like, okay. So I drive over to that hospital. And I had also done paramedic school before this. So, and so I knew this hospital really well from doing all my paramedic runs. And so as soon as I walk in, do the name ID thing, they started walking back towards the chapel. And I knew that those doors. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so the rest of the ER is to the right, and I saw a set of closed curtains. And so I beelined it there. I stopped following the doc that had bad news, and I just went straight over there. And I was with my brother, and he's 11 years younger than me. He kind of followed me. And I didn't even think about it because I was like on a mission. And so I pulled back the curtain, and my dad was already in a body bag laying on the table, and he had a ET tube sticking out of his mouth. They leave it all that like that prior to the autopsy. And so then it was like, that's when I realized like my brother was looking at the same thing as me. And so it's like a very emotional thing. And so I just got my brother out of there because he was too young to be seeing that. And then, yeah. And the part that really was crazy and sucked is that obviously worse, not anything worse than that, but he had brought this motorcycle, 1970s Triumph Trident. And he had rebuilt that whole thing, blacked everything out, chromed anything that could be chromed, and then put 2 Tridents on the gas tank, It was pretty badass. Thing made a Harley sound like a Honda. It was so loud because it was a triple 3-cylinder Triumph Trident. It was the same motorcycle Evel Knievel used to, jump buses or whatever, he used to do. Same exact make and model. And yeah, I had that thing forever, but that was like his gift to me for finally getting my bird and the whole thing. But it was that was the kickoff to showing up to SEAL Team 3. Yeah, it was a shitty moment for sure, and it used to bring me to tears, but I think as time goes by, because that was 1997, he was 46 years old.
46?
Had a massive heart attack in between 2 parallel parked cars. So when he dropped in between them, nobody could see him. He was young enough to probably have survived it. And I went into like investigation mode afterwards and went back to that area. And I talked to this lady who said she thought she heard somebody yell, but she had her hairdryer going. She turned the hairdryer off because she thought she heard something. Looked out her window. Her window was at an angle where you couldn't see in between the 2 cars. And then I talked to the paramedics, and I knew those guys, and yeah, just a shitty way to kind of kick off the SEAL Team 3 portion of the career. It was like, man.
Damn, man.
And it's all the stuff that he would have loved, all of our stories, every dad wants to hear all of that, and so it was like, I always had these moments. I was like, man, my dad would love to hear this or see that or shoot that gun or whatever. But yeah, it was definitely a shitty way to kick it off. So,
You still have the bike?
I had the bike for a while, and my mom, it was a whole other story. She ended up selling that thing because she needed the money. So some guy in Texas has it, but yeah, it'd be kind of nice to get it back. But yeah, she got rid of it a long time ago. She needed cash.
Damn.
Yeah. Yep. But Team 3 was you know, you know the reputation, like the West Coast, you have SEAL Team 1, which is like Stalin Team 1, right? Super strict. Then you had Team 5 that was super laid back. There was no Team 7 back then. Then you had Team 3 that was in the middle. Like probably one of the coolest teams to be at. It had a little bit of both. It was strict, but also you could have fun. You know, it wasn't miserable like some of the guys at Team 1. And yeah, it was a good place to be.
If there's anything you could say to your dad right now, what would it be?
Oh, man. Like, I think number one, it'd be thank you for, because I've always looked at any man who, see, this is that Oprah Ryan portion you're trying to pull out of me. I'm going to leave tears on this chair with everyone else. If there was any guy, like any guy, that takes on a mom and her 3-year-old, because that's what he did. He wasn't my dad, you know? So any guy that'll take on, he's doing his master's, he's working a full-time job, and he's taking on my mom and me at age 3, that to me is like a pretty honorable, amazing thing, right? So I don't think I got a chance to really go, hey, you know, thanks for taking that big step. That's a huge step for a 20-something-year-old, whatever age he was. You know, I'd definitely say thank you, because he was a rock of sorts, because my mom was not. So, and he did the best he could for sure, you know, filling that role. So I'd definitely just tell him thank you. Yeah. You almost got me on that one.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, good dude. But yeah, the stories that he would have loved to have heard, you know. It's like, damn, man. You know, that's the only guy you want. You don't care about telling your friends or you know, even other team guys. It's like, you know, if you're going to tell stories, it's the dads that want them and deserve them. You know, not really anybody else. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Would have been cool. But, hey, you know, life goes on. Just keep moving forward, right? Compartmentalize it, deep six it to the bottom of your soul, and deal with it some other day when you do Ibogaine.
Have you met your biological dad?
I did. Yeah.
You did? Well, how old were you?
It was just a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah. No. So there was a first time I met him. We came back from Saudi, met at some park, and I just remember him asking my mom, wow, he's skinny. Do you ever feed him? And that's all I remember of that.
No kidding.
Yeah. And who knows, you know, his story and then my mom's story, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So, but yeah, it was really what didn't meet him, because I think I was probably really nervous as a kid and not knowing what the hell to feel or think about that crap. But, and then fast forward how many ever years till just recently, you know, met him again. Pretty uneventful. Kind of asked him, interrogated him on a couple things my mom said, and just was like, hey, so why this, why that? And he had pretty neutral, normal answers. And at this point, he's an older guy too. So, you know, but it was interesting. You know, he's shorter than me, and, you know, you're just seeing somebody older, probably more frail than what he used to be. And so I think I had moments leading up to it where I was like, I'm going to ask this motherfucker all kinds of questions and put him on the spot and ask him this and that. But once you're there, you realize, you know what? It's already come and gone at this point. It doesn't matter. You know, anything I asked him was just curiosity. You know, most of it was just about my mom, because, you know, she was a little on the crazy side.
Did you get anything out of that?
I think I didn't get much out of it, but I think and I hope it gave him something. It was weird. I felt like I was kind of doing it. Felt like I wanted to do it for him, because you think if you put those shoes on, you go, okay, all these years have gone by. Did play a role in raising this kid. I know I kind of thought like, well, maybe he wants to give him something, you know. I thought it would give me something too, but I didn't really notice anything, honestly. Nah, who knows?
Did you feel a sense of guilt from him?
I noticed a little bit of nervousness, I think. Maybe a tad of, maybe there's a little bit of embarrassment in there. It's hard to tell because it's the first time to read them. Yeah, I didn't notice any guilt, but I think he was a little embarrassed. Knowing, right? He knows his own truth. So, and once I sensed that, I just kind of kept it simple, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't give him any stories. You know, those would have been kept for the dad, the guy who actually jumped in those shoes and did that job, you know?
Yeah.
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 Well, Clint, let's take a break.
All right.
When we come back, we'll get into SEAL Team 3. If you spend any time off-road like I do, you already know how easy it is to end up second-guessing where you're at, whether you're still on a legal trail or if the route ahead is even worth taking. That's why I've been using OnX Off-Road. It's an off-road navigation app that shows trails, public and private land boundaries, places to camp, and detailed trail info all in one place. And what makes it really useful is the amount of actual trail data. You can check difficulty ratings, terrain details, trail photos, even recent reports from other riders before you head out there. The other big thing is you can download maps ahead of time, because once you lose service out there, your phone is pretty much useless. But with OnX Off-Road, everything still works offline. And if you're riding with a group, their location sharing feature lets everybody stay on the same map so nobody gets lost or separated. What I like most about it is it gives me a lot more confidence when I'm exploring somewhere new. I'm not wasting time backtracking, accidentally ending up on private land, or trying to figure things out once I'm already deep into the trail system. I can plan ahead, know what I'm getting into, and spend more time actually enjoying the ride instead of worrying about navigation the whole time. Search OnX Off-Road in the App Store or Google Play. Again, that's OnX Off-Road in the App Store or Google Play. Looking for another way to support The Shawn Ryan Show? Head to ShawnRyanShow.com and check out the latest drops from Vigilance Elite. We just released new gear, including this beautiful moisture-wicking VE performance hat and SRS campfire mugs, and you guessed it, Vigilance Elite gummy bears. Oh shit! Every purchase directly supports the show and helps us continue bringing you independent conversations without compromise. Visit ShawnRyanShow.com and grab yours today. All right, Clint, back from the break. Moving into your time at SEAL Team 3. So this is where you and Mike Ritland became buddies, right?
Right. Yeah.
Did you guys go through buds together?
No, he was several classes behind.
Oh, okay.
So I met him and Glenn and all those guys. They showed up. I think I'd already done a deployment or two when they checked in as new guys.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, back when you could haze people, right? You know, I don't know. What do you think? The hazing thing, I always felt like it was such a great thing, you know, like I equate it to, you know, you either did it for celebration or correction, and it worked either way. You know, if a guy was getting married, you haze him. If it was his birthday, you haze him. But if he's also really not performing the way that he should, and or, you know, had a safety violation or something crazy, well then, you know, you haze him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It just seems too bad.
I don't know what it's like now.
Yeah, I've heard, yeah, I don't either ultimately, but I heard it's all kind of not that way. The camaraderie is not the way it used to be.
I didn't really get hazed. I got the shit knocked out of me.
Well, okay.
But I didn't really get hazed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our guys, when we showed up, I guess they had it really bad. And so they made like, they were like, we're not doing that to our guys. And
what year was that for you?
That was, I think I showed up, it was 02 or 03. I can't remember exactly.
That's about when the ethos came out.
But no, it wasn't any of that. I mean, it was a rough crowd. There was a lot of bar fighting.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of more took an approach of, we'll wait till they get cocky. And if they do get cocky, then we'll knock the shit out of them. And that's what happened to me. So a couple times. But anyways, you got any good hazing stories?
Yeah.
Let's hear one.
Probably my new guy hazing, because you get one when you check in, right? And it's like it was a thing. And I feel like a lot of this was leftovers because, you look at the Vietnam guys that were left. There's a couple of them in the 90s when I checked in that they had created the culture. Vietnam era combat vets created the culture of the SEAL teams, especially during all that time of like peacetime or not really operating.
Mm-hmm.
And so the hazing piece was such a big deal. And I remember we went to Shaw's, new guy, and it's after doing runs in the house all day long. And then we're in the weapons cleaning room, which was like part of a house out there at Shaw's at the time. And me and one other new guy kind of realized we're by ourselves. There's no one else in here cleaning their guns right now. Where did they all go? And just as we realize it, they roll in. This is back when you wore flight suits and balaclavas for all your CQB stuff, So they roll in with their flight suits on and their ninja hoods, and they systematically, tackle us, take us. And it's cold at Shaw's. It's like in the 40s at night, 30s maybe. I remember the swimming pool had a cover on it. Somehow we end up out there. They strip us down butt naked and it's Justin, I'll just keep his first name, and they put Justin and I in the 69 position. And they tape us into the 69 position. And then they pull out the mini blasting machine, okay? And they had, I don't know how they pulled it off. You can do anything with duct tape, but they had somehow got it to where my head is basically shoved into Justin's ass, and his face is shoved into my ass, right? And there's enough flesh exposed on our asses for the lead wires of the mini blasting machine.
Oh, shit.
And they duct tape those leads onto our asses, and they have two machines. So once they had them in place, and they're like, and then my ass would then clench his face because it sends that electrical current. So it's like tasing your ass, causing your ass to clench. And so interestingly enough, it was like my face kept getting sucked into his ass. Every time it would clench, it was like, pull me in and pull me in closer, And Justin, he loved squats. So his ass was definitely more powerful than my ass. So he didn't have it as bad. But, and then of course it's freezing cold. They pull out the hoses, drenching us. And then the part that freaked me out was the swimming pool. They're like, let's just throw them in. Well, it had a cover on it, right? And these guys aren't always thinking, as you know, like the smartest. And this is how people accidentally die. And when there's hazing going on, like it happened out at the, on the East Coast, you had the guys that tied the guy, he was on a spine board, and they tied it off to a bridge and then chunked him off, and the rope didn't hold.
Holy shit, I didn't even know that.
He hit the water and it flipped over and he drowned because he was on the spine board.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, there was a lot of like stories about hazing gone wrong back in the day, but yeah, so I mean, they were going to chunk us in, and that cover would have just wrapped us up like saran wrap, and you drown to death, while you're taped to the 69 position with, your best buddy. But anyway, that was the, welcome to the team's hazing out at Shaw's.
Nice.
Memorable for sure.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, that Team 3 early days, this is pre 9/11, your workups probably in retrospect were more about liberty than it was about training, and you still trained and you trained hard, but when you compare post 9/11 to pre, you realize, wow, we weren't really training that hard, And operationally, you weren't doing much except Team 3. Team 3, we were doing all the shipboardings and enforcing the embargoes against Saddam at the time. So, but training wise, it's pretty basic when you really reflect on it now compared to, these guys are like running advanced, day one, which you would consider advanced if you were to compare the two eras, right? But probably one of the most memorable, and I haven't talked about this much, but one of the most memorable training exercises, I was paired up with my platoon chief, and he was a former Marine gone SEAL, hard as nails, one of those guys that never takes a break. He never, takes his boots off or lightens up his laces in the middle of a 10-click hump. He always leaves his ruck on, never takes it off, during, an infill or an exfil, one of those guys, right? Just loves being uncomfortable and never gives himself any grace or opportunity to just take a moment or take a breath. And so one day they're like, hey, so we get an opportunity to dive against the dolphins. I'm like, dolphins? What do you mean dolphins? And they're like, yeah, dolphins. I'm like, what is that? Like some piece of technology or something? They're like, no, they're real dolphins. I'm like, what do you mean we're diving against real dolphins? They're like killer dolphins. They know how to kill people. And I'm like, and we're going to dive against them? They're like, yeah, man, it's going to be awesome. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then it was a 14-man platoon. So 7 dive pairs get put out broad daylight, middle of San Diego Bay. And all you're told is like, yeah, these dolphins will come and, they'll tap you and that's it. I'm like, kind of like, huh, all right. I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. I mean, this whole thing was like completely foreign to me. And as we're in the Zodiacs kind of heading out and our little points that we're going to drop each other off at, Chief was like, all right, we're going to be near a pier. I'm going to grab onto one of the structures down below. I'll hold on to it, kind of bear hug it and pretend to be, a pier structure pylon. And then you're on the buddy line, so you just get below me and just kind of lay down on your stomach in the dirt and the sand down there and just pretend to be the sand. And I was like, okay. I don't even, it's so foreign to me. I'm like, what are we doing? You got Draeger. Okay, we put their Draegers on. We go in. It's a beautiful day. Obviously, it's San Diego. Every day is beautiful. And we go down. We kind of make our way over to this pier. And we knew that there was a time when these dolphins were going to be put in the water. It was either 1 or 2 of them. And the dolphin program obviously was like super hush-hush then. And now I think there's a Discovery Channel thing. And I've heard guys talk about them or whatever. But, these things are basically trained to detect combat or enemy divers. And then we'll kill them. And they have a harness that kind of slips over their head that basically gives them, it's like a weapon. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not sure details don't matter for the story, but they are incredible animals. I think we all know, man, well, these things are just as smart as us and they communicate. We know that as a pod or as a team, they can kill a great white, they can get up to whatever it is, 30, 40 miles an hour underwater. And if they hit you, you'll die. Right. And so I'll never forget, man, we're in the water, we get set, we go down. I kind of watch him grab on and pretend to be part of the pier structure. I stretch my buddy line out. I get on my belly and I'm just kind of eating sand, kind of just hanging out on Draeger, just taking a moment and kind of thinking to myself, like, what? I don't even know what to expect on this. What the fuck is going on, And then you hear, and you're just like, what the fuck was that? And, in the water, everything is omnidirectional. You don't know which way it's coming from. And it sounds like it's right here, and you just keep hearing, and then you hear, and you don't know if it's getting closer, further, where it's at. And then all of a sudden I feel like this big thump right in the center of my back. Boom, just kind of drives me into the sand a little bit more. And I was like, oh, that must have been it. And so I just lay there still. And then now I hear my chief on Draeger, and he's yelling through his mouthpiece. And So I roll over and I look, and the sun is in the background. It's beautiful. And this dolphin is like just majestic, just hanging out, hovering above in space, right there in the water. And you've got the silhouette of my chief. And these two are taking turns punching each other. Okay. So now Chief's movements in the water, a punch, right? It's like, and it's just slow motion. And he kind of hits the side of the dolphin down below its eye, and kind of yelling at it like, get out of here. And then that dolphin would just look at him and go, and then wham, and just hit him right in the chest, right in the Draeger. And then back off and kind of look at Chief, and Chief would look at the dolphin, and then, another big swing and miss or hit, but it was nothing, right? And then the dolphin would look at him and go, and then whack, and then hit him again. And you hear him go, ooh. And each time this dolphin is hitting him harder and harder, right in the center of the Draeger. And eventually, Chief, the way they know whether they killed you or not is they have this styrofoam cone on their beak. And it's supposed to pop off after they hit you and go to the surface, right? And well, this thing wasn't coming off. And so he eventually gets smart. He kind of grabs the styrofoam thing and lets go of it. And they both look at each other. The dolphin just goes and then just disappears into the water. And like,
Holy shit.
but probably when it comes to like training and something, it was like funny and beautiful all at the same time. And I had my buddy line stretched out as far as it go because I was like, I do not want anything to do with this
I'm good.
thing.
Yeah.
If it decides it needs to hit something else. Because there was rumors about one dolphin named Jake who had broken a couple of team guys' backs, hitting them so hard. Broke
shit.
Ribs. And they ended up retiring him. And supposedly he had like kills in some harbor around the world where they deployed him.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
So, yeah, super cool.
Wow.
But so point being is pre 9/11, you had time, to go be the training apparatus for dolphins.
Right on.
Because it was more for the dolphins than it was for us.
I didn't realize they deployed them. I thought they were all like base defense type stuff.
Yeah, I used to, I think, know more about it. I've forgotten it all, but yeah, I think they had deployed them a couple times on behalf of other harbors and other countries kind of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, other than that, our deployments were ARGs. You'd have a couple of platoons that have to sit on a ship and go do the entire ship deployment.
Man, I'll bet that was horrible.
It was horrible. Did 2 of those back to back. Actually, that's when, I met Mike and Glenn. That was that was my second ARG, and that was their first. And it was a good crew, so it made it kind of funny. Glenn Doherty, Mike Ritland, Shane Hyatt. It's like just the 3 of them alone is nothing but trouble. So, but we I don't know if it was that one, but shipboardings in the Persian Gulf was like the thing before 9/11. Like Team 3 was doing them all the time, and we kind of were like the pros at it.
Why? What was going on?
The embargo against Saddam at the time, oil, weapons, anything that was coming out of Iraq. So there's a lot of smuggling going on. And so these things would come out of the KA completely blacked out. They would ride that international Iranian 12 nautical mile line completely no lights. And we would pretend to be fishing boats, kind of hanging out, loitering. Once they pass by, because these are big tankers, and so we would slowly roll in behind them on this, because the superstructure created a natural shadow that the radar couldn't see behind them. It could only see in front. So you'd wait for them to pass by, and then you'd kind of slowly roll in, and then, crank up the speed, and then get up next to these things. Those ribs would get skin to skin, hook, climb, get on board. At the time, it was like, this is the ultimate frogman op, 20 knots, crappy sea state. You climb up that ladder, and a caving ladder is what, 6 inches wide, little aluminum with, steel, whatever the hell, what are those things made out of? Titanium rungs and aluminum wire, and up you go, and you climb up, get to the bridge as fast as you can. Half of you go to the bridge, half of you go to lower steering, and then take that thing, turn it into international waters, and hand it over to NATO forces, and they take the oil or they take whatever's on board, and then you get off, get back on your boats, and do it again because there was another one coming. And
How many of these were you guys doing?
you would do like between the big tankers and then a whole lot of dhows. You do a lot of dhows, like those things were only like 100. The big dhows are what, 100, 150 feet long, something like that, You do a bunch of those where you're literally pulling up next to it and like leaping, from the rib over to the boat. And, it kind of depend on the night. There are plenty of nights you're sitting around doing nothing. But in a deployment, you'd definitely get your fair share of hook and climbs.
Right on.
Yeah. And Team 3 started like inventing protocols and ladders and, and started actually developing stuff and just to make it go faster, smoother, and yeah, it was kind of the thing. And it was the only thing going on. I remember other teams were trying to get in on the Middle East just so they could get that operational experience. But kind of goes back to, I think it was either one of our admirals, Olson, I think, or maybe McCraven, what used to be the op of the decade back then, after 9/11 just became the op of the night, right? Yeah. Everybody was, doing something cool every single night. Yeah. But pre 9/11, you're like, it was good to be at Team 3 because you were actually getting to work, It was fun. But it was a good team. And then what, 9/11 happened, and where were you when 9/11 happened?
I had just graduated boot camp.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I'd just gotten out of a hernia surgery. Went through boot camp.
Hernia?
Huge hernia.
Ooh.
I was scared to tell anybody because I thought they'd kick me out of the program.
Probably. Yeah.
And then it just got so big, I was like,
go get it sewed up.
I have to do something. And I was like super reluctant. I was like, I don't want to get kicked out of the BUDS program. And they're like, dumbass. You're not gonna get like, how long have you had this? The whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just gotten out, and then I was supposed to fly home, actually, for recovery.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Before,
But didn't fly home.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was driving across Coronado Bridge to work that day. And at the time, my ex-wife, she calls and is like, the United States is under attack. And I was like, well, shit, what are you talking about? Then show up to Team 3, and sure enough, at the quarterdeck, there was a TV there, and everybody was kind of staring at it. And just as I look over some guy's shoulder, Plane 2 went into Tower 2, like live, and watched it. And I was like, holy shit, that doesn't seem like an accident. It's kind of weird. Why are these planes just flying into buildings, Because at first you think it's like some air traffic control software glitch, or it's like it's really weird. Then it just, obviously everything escalated after that. We had platoons that were about to deploy, and everything shifted. And before you know it, we're helping them build their pallets. And the first place they went was Afghanistan, Team 3 just kind of led the way. And I remember I was like trying to get in on one of them and couldn't, But shortly after that, Iraq kicks off. So before you know it, now we're covering Team 3 this is still before Task Force 21, when they said, okay, now all teams and all are deploying everywhere now.
Yeah.
Before that, it was just, we were all doing the math. Like, how is Team 3 going to maintain a war in Afghanistan and now Iraq, And then McCraven, who came up with the whole Task Force 21 thing, did it the right timing, and seemed like they pulled that off overnight. Yeah. Because before you know it, we push into Iraq, and then Team 5 relieved us, and it just became the cycle,
What eventful operations were you on?
Probably the biggest noteworthy was the gas oil platform.
Okay.
Because that kicked off the war, and it was, we were sitting in Kuwait waiting for that whole thing to happen. And I know there was times we didn't think it was going to happen, times we did. So we were just all, basically fucking around. It was a tent city, and we had 4 I think we had 4 to 6 tents that were ours, you know. And we had 2 tents across from one another. And I think you've heard this before. We had these cardboard signs on the outside of each tent. One that said lions led by dogs, you know. And then the tent across from it had a cardboard sign that everybody could see that said, never before have so few been led by so many. Because all of a sudden there was, you know, dozens of 06 SEALs coming out of their reserve desk jobs now wanting to check the box on war that never got to do it during their tenure in the community. So we had never seen any of these officers before. And they literally just reservists came over. And then, of course, lions led by dogs, you know, that went over well.
I'll bet.
What's funny is none of them said remove those. And we were like the entryway into the area. So everybody read these big ass signs written, you know, with Sharpies, nice and thick. And then we would just heckle people walking back and forth between our tents, you know. We had built a war garden. We had white picket fences. I mean, during the time we were just hanging out waiting for war to start, we just got in trouble. And I was the LPO. I was in a leadership position for that platoon. So, of course, I had all the leadership coming to me. Can you please tell your guys to just at least wear their uniforms or something? I'm like, I'll try. But, you know, I'm telling you, it's not going to work, man. This is all about morale right now. Like, I'm letting them do whatever because that beats the alternative. Trust me. And they're just like, well, they need to blouse their boots. I said, they're not blousing their boots. None of that's happening. Not on this watch.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
It was an interesting time. But that was leadership that had no combat experience. So they were very risk adverse is probably the best way to put it.
What a joke.
It was interesting. Well, so then they're like, all right, you're going to take down the gas oil platform. So we train to dive in, you know, set up a blow and go line. And then you hook your draggers in to this line at about 10 feet down and you blow and go. You close the valve, weapons up, frogman style to the surface, hook, climb onto we train that over and over and over again. And then at the last minute, at the time, he was Captain Harwood, the guy who was very popular for wearing a mask on the news, the ball-headed. Now he's an admiral, but at the time, he was Captain Harwood. And he makes the command decision, like, we got to prove the value of these jet boats. And we're like, what do you mean? You're just going to pull up to that go plat with your jet boat. Why can't we take the jet boats, you know, a nautical mile or 2 out and dive in and still prove the value? No. You're going to pull right up to that thing. And we're just like, wow. For somebody as risk adverse, you're putting us in, and this thing was lit up like a Christmas tree, right? It was this huge light bubble around this thing. You could see us coming a mile away. And so that was the command decision that we're just going to pull up to the surf deck of this go plat, gas oil platform, and take this thing down. And intel said, hey, there's 3 bad guys and a hostage or something like that. And like, wow. And even then, pulling up, they have obviously the high ground, the bad guys do, and supposedly it's wired to blow up. So at least for diving in, you got stealth on your side, element of surprise, all this and that. You float in with some boats, that doesn't exactly give us the element of surprise. So it kind of started to smell and appear like, you know, this total suicide mission, which is one of my new guys labeled it. You know, this is a suicide mission. I'm like, shut up. We're going to have fun with it, okay? We're going to do whatever we're told, you know? So that same new guy ended up actually quitting. He ended up saying, hey, this isn't for me.
I remember Mike Ritland told me that when I interviewed him.
Yeah. I had asked him a couple of times because there was certain questions he was asking in the briefs that kind of made you turn your head like, what are you doing, man? Why are you asking that? Like, is this smart? Should we be doing this? Is this our job? You know, and I remember confronting and asking him like, hey man, you all right? And he kind of turned around. Wait, are you all right? are you the one that's scared? And I was just like, no, but you're kind of asking some questions that are concerning. Maybe don't ask those questions anymore in front of leadership, in front of us, like just stop, And then eventually ended up, gave up his bird, gave up everything, and was like, I'm out of here.
Wow.
Yeah. To go through all that training and earn your way, it's unfortunate, really, but he had to like stay back in Kuwait. And after we took the gas oil platform down, we got in our Humvees and drove north on Highway 1. Really no mission. Just, hey, go to Iraq. It's like, oh, okay, like, all right, we're on our way. With our Humvees we borrowed from the Army that had zero armor. We like took the doors off. It was horrible. But we ended up pulling up to that thing. I was boat one, number one guy, jumped off on the first surf deck. Shane was right behind me. We ended up taking those stairs at Mach speed, got about halfway up the stairs to get to the superstructure, and boom, first gunshot. I was like, holy fuck. And then on comms, I'm like, dynamic. That was the word for like, okay, the gig's up, just go. And we get to the top, and it's right near berthing where the superstructure is. There's a guy standing in front of us, no gun. We're like, get on the ground. We kind of move up to him, look to our right, and there's like, I don't know, seemed like a dozen dudes staring at us. And there was only supposed to be 3 bad guys and a hostage. And I'm like, now we're like, holy fuck, and now everyone else is catching up. And I'm telling all these dudes, get on the ground, looking at their hands. And it was an overwhelming moment because you didn't know who had what. And we're thinking triggering device. And now you got all these dudes. And why are they standing here and not like, so real time, it's just one big puzzle. And what we do best, right? You just start, stick to your training and start figuring out solutions. So get them all to the ground, looking for guns, looking hands, and then start clearing the superstructure, the berthing. That was the priority, to look for the triggering device if there was any, if the thing was wired to blow. Anyway, we ended up clearing it, and now you're clearing the entire, this thing was 1 click long, 7 decks. So 7 clicks of 3D environment, because the floors aren't floors. They're great. You can see up, you can see down. And it's a horrible environment, when you are like, now we're like, wait a minute, it's not 3 bad guys. There's more. Now we got to go out 7 clicks of this and clear it. And so we just started clearing it from end to end and deck to deck. And it was a long ass night. I remember we were so dehydrated and out of it. We weren't ready for it at all. If, we're finding shoulder fired weapons, anti-aircraft guns, and then it was wired to explode all subsurface. So all the explosives were just below the water line. And found the triggering device. We had some EOD guys with us, so they made everything safe. It took hours. And then we had Marines roll in. They kind of took over. So by the end of it, there was 27 bad guys, no hostage. And there was like 16 of us, right?
Wow.
If they really wanted to man up with all the guns and the shoulder fired rockets and the anti-aircraft gun, and then the place was wired to explode, it would have been an interesting, following Saddam's first run, what did he do? He blew everything up and created these environmental disasters that made Bush, the first Bush look dumb, right? And so our whole job the mission was, hey, prevent environmental disaster by taking the thing down before they could, light themselves off, really. And so then we turned it over to the Marines, and then we get back and we do a quick debrief and kind of like, all right, when was the first shot fired? And turns out one of the boat guys arming the 50 cal in the bow was really nervous.
No way.
And so his thumb hit the button, launched that AD straight into the very pipe of oil that we were there to prevent spilling, into the Persian Gulf.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And had choice words for him and put him on a plane back to the U.S. And I don't even know what happened to that kid. But yeah, who would have thought, right? No. And so now we take our Sanford and Son hoopties that we got from the Army, these Humvees that had zero armor, and we, load them up with MREs, water and fuel. And then we had law rockets and AT-4 rockets zip tied to every horizontal vertical pipe, every part of the vehicle, and then our guns and comms. And they're like, yeah, just drive up Highway 1 and link up with the Marines. We're like, oh, okay. Interesting. That was it. And so we start driving up Highway 1, Kuwait, across the border. I'll never forget the pride, looking to our left and looking to our right, the lineup of the Marine Corps. Because the Marines had the eastern portion of Iraq, and then the Army had the western portion. And that's full on everything. Tanks, artillery, all of the Cobras, everything you can think of, racked and stacked, heading north.
Damn.
To just sweep the whole side of that country. And of course, the East had all the big cities for the most, it had, hit Baghdad, or Nasiriyah, Baghdad, some others, all the way up to Tikrit, and it was a full push. And we were part of that first wave. And it was true, like seeing true combat, like when we got to Nasiriyah, the Marines were in trenches. It was trench warfare. That's when Jessica Lynch convoy had just been hit. She was in a hospital that we could see right over there, and we were sleeping under our Humvees, and they'd put the perimeter around a medical waste site. So it was all nothing but hypodermic needles sticking out of the ground. And we were laying on them thinking, wow, why are we getting poked? And you'd look, and in the sunlight, you'd see the glitter. And you'd realize the glitter that was shiny on the surface was all hypodermic needles that they'd been dumping there for.
Holy shit.
And that's what we were sleeping on every night.
Are you serious?
It's crazy, right? And then we kind of get settled in. We had these pop-up tents that we had bought in Kuwait last minute, like camping tents. I mean, so we're setting up camp. And then I remember me and Glenn were like putting up IR netting over our we had like, 10 tents, little dome tents, like North Face tents, and then putting up a big IR dome over that for like whatever reason, for shade, and thinking, okay, yeah. And then we got our lawn chairs out and we're all sitting around like, oh, this is war. The Marines are working hard. And they had like nothing for us to do at first. And then at the time, Colonel Kelly, right? Who we later know as General Kelly, working for Trump. Colonel Kelly, 06, comes out onto the battlefield, and he pulls us aside, and he's like, all right, you my SEALs? We're like, yeah. It's like, there's a city called Suck-Ass. It's probably called something else in Arabic, but I don't know it. We just call it Suck-Ass. Population 80,000, okay? I want you my SEALs. I want you to go over there and start killing everybody. We're like, wait a minute, huh? He's like, yeah, Hunter Killer Ops. I'm turning it on. Okay, ready, go. And he turns around and walks away. And we're just kind of like looking at each other like, well, there's only like 16 of us against 80,000. This ought to work out great, And I believe right after Nasiriyah, he was the first Marine colonel to be awarded general on the battlefield since Korea.
Wow.
Yeah, I think something like that. I have to look that up. Great guy, hardcore. I mean, the Marines were not fucking around, man. It was like a sight to see. And so, we'd set up some L ambushes, and we're kind of starting to get our feet under us operationally. Like, what are we going to provide? What are we going to do? Our OIC chief and myself started going to all the leadership meetings just outside of Nasiriyah, and really starting to kind of figure out the groove of where to special, because they didn't think special operations play a role in this is conventional combat, trench warfare up at the front. It's crazy, and artillery going off that were set up behind us, and Cobra helicopters rolling in regularly, lighting up the place day and night. It didn't matter. You just constantly boom, boom, boom. It's It was really incredible to see. And then one night, you know, Glenn and I got pulled aside, and at Colonel Kelly's direction, we were told, like, hey, keep this between you guys. Don't advertise it, but we need you guys to go up to the front line and, you know, start pulling dead Marines out of these trenches. And the rumored time was at the Fedayeen, where, you know, everyone was so tired. Like, I remember, I've never been that tired. You didn't sleep days and days and days. There was just no sleeping. And so the same thing applied to these Marines up in these front trenches. And supposedly the Fedayeen, those were the guys with the balaclavas and black trench coats. They were sneaking in and like literally cutting throats while Marines were sleeping because they were exhausted. It wasn't because it was their turn to sleep or anything like that. And so we had heard that, and we were like, what the fuck? And so we went up one night, and it was just Glenn and I, and we had like some Marines that were just kind of providing security and really just starting to pull bodies and kind of pull them to the back of the line. And it was probably the most emotionally intense thing that I had faced at that point. You know,
Shit.
This is real. And that's why they didn't want anybody knowing, because it was all very discreet, because they didn't want to fuck with morale. They didn't want to fuck with the push. And it made sense, you know, like, hey, let's just get the bodies, get them wrapped up and get them home. And yeah, it was, you know.
Damn, I'd never even heard about that.
Yeah, it was pretty haunting. And it's still haunting to think about, because you look at them and they're kids, you know, you can look at them in the eyes and you're like, holy fuck, man. But yeah, it was a thing. And there was some other, you know, events that we had to help out with those guys. But, you know, on Nasiriyah was messy. You know, I think it was also for the Marine Corps, it was the first time for them to kind of get their combat legs under them too. There was like tanks wiped out everywhere. I mean, I was like, holy shit, you know, because you wouldn't think that we didn't hear anything about an actual battles going on. You just thought, hey, the United States military is just kicking ass, until you got there and you're like, holy fuck, U.S. tanks that are all burned out and fucked up, and, you know, a ton of like convoy vehicles that were burned out and, you know, had been attacked, and just, you know, surprising to say the least. Then some days go by, we kind of got into our rhythm. We had a reservist commander kind of take over, who was very front leaning, and finally we started kind of like really working, and we were doing hunter killer. So we were going to all of your, any scud that was pointed in any direction, but most of them were pointed towards Kuwait. We'd go we'd get reports about a scud rocket or a launching site, roll in, put demo on it, blow them up, keep on moving. And that's kind of what as the line moved, we were always just a little bit ahead of the line, doing reconnaissance and taking out some of these scud sites, clearing buildings, ammo caches. And we did that pretty much all the way to Tikrit. And then Tikrit was supposed to be this, we meet up with the Marines. They set up a perimeter. We got into the center. It was the first time, like, okay, now guys can take a break and sleep. You know, I remember one of the convoys we were part of, our Humvees stacked. In the front was a ton of like convoy vehicles, and behind was a ton. We were kind of in the middle. And the sun's coming up. We're all sitting in our seats, lined up. And I remember waking up. And I look at Zach to the right. I look at my OIC. I'm sitting, you know, back seat left, our point driver. He's passed out. And I step out and I look up the line. The main convoy's already left, but there's vehicles in front of us. And I walk up to them. They're all asleep. And then I look at the rest of the line. We're talking, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 vehicles sitting ducks as the sun comes up, and everybody is passed the fuck out. Could not stay awake. All the drivers are asleep while the front convoy had already left, you know.
Holy shit.
I quickly start waking everybody up, you know, down the line, getting everybody awake, getting engines running, and then start moving. I mean, it was sleep became this, you didn't realize it. You just was rare. You just didn't get any sleep at all. Every time you moved, you'd lay up for the night, you'd go out and do something. You'd lay underneath your Humvee to sleep, but you didn't sleep. I just had crazy nightmares of Fedayeen guys like cutting our throats in the middle of the night once I heard that story. That's all I thought about. And yeah, and then we make our way to Tikrit, and, get inside this Marine Corps perimeter. I'm like, all right, it's time to sleep. And, I told the guys, just lay down, try and get some sleep. And me and LT took the first watch. And then like right when everybody's comfortable, all hell breaks loose. There's this explosion, gunfire, fucking shit coming at us. Our front Humvee got hit, got a bunch of bullet holes in it, and we take cover and trying to figure out what the hell's going on because you're inside a perimeter of Marines, which 18-year-olds on 50 cals, you don't know which way they're pointing these things, and all hell breaks loose. Get on nods. You can see, saw this Fedayeen guys in this tree line. So the Marines had basically put the perimeter around some bad guys. And because it was at night, they didn't clear it. And then we ended up inside the perimeter next to the bad guys. So the bad guys are over there and we're over here. We're trying to go to sleep. They're waking up, shooting everybody. And so nods, lasers, probably not even 100 yards away. We engaged them. I remember it was the first time, like background, watch your background, And one of the guys ended up killing him. Then we get online, roll up there, search them. And this is when you realize, first time, these green tips will zip right through somebody because we knew between us there was, let's say 12 rounds. There was 12 holes in this guy. But during the whole time while we're engaging him, it was like he didn't even know he was being shot. Mm-hmm. And this was 03. And so their green tips are just so hot. They're just zipping right through people. And he didn't even know it because he just kept on walking with his AK-47 like he's sneaking around, And eventually he drops and, you go up, search him. And then all the rumors of Tikrit the next morning was going to be a bloodbath. And so we went in. We knew we were taking Saddam's palace. And probably the most eerie thing is we roll in and there was nobody there. It was like the whole town had left, and it was so quiet that made it even a little more like sketchy, We set up, and I guess the Marines did whatever they did, but for us it was uneventful. And we set up for a couple of days, a week, and just that's the gold toilet, seats, and the place had already been looted, and
Yep.
The first kind of exposure to one of Saddam's palaces, his birth palace, and all this and that. And yeah, that's probably the long version, but it was one big op, This was before operations had names.
What time span was it?
The whole first couple of months of the war.
No shit.
Yeah. So you're, yeah, I don't even remember. I mean, it was just constant, just moving, sleeping in the dirt. Oh, I remember while we're hanging out outside on Nasiriyah, it's time for Jessica Lynch to get rescued, right? And we had heard like, oh, damn, Nick's rolling in. And sure enough, they roll in. Their Hummers had a nickname called Hammers, I think, because they had like supercharged motors and they were armored and they were very Gucci'd out or whatever, So their Humvees, I don't know where they were staged, but they were staged for them because they were staying in a 5-star in Riyadh, right? And they get in their helicopters and their starched camis, fly to their Humvees, get in their Humvees, and then drive to us. And here we are, we're like covered in dirt and grime and sleeping in the dirt. And it was the first time where you could see like these guys get out of their Humvees and they're kind of looking at us like, whoa, like these white side conventional SEALs kind of living in the dirt and in the combat and this and that. And I knew a couple of them. They were, from Team 3 guys and touch base with them and everything. And there's that like split second where we felt like, oh, we've got the upper edge on these guys this time because, the competition between the regular teams and SEAL Team 6. But they rolled in and fucking annihilated that thing that night. Just, one of my good friends was the gunner and just, weapons free, and just took out that entire bottom floor with 50 cal, just lit it up. Overwhelming firepower. Then the assault team went in on the floor, and some, I think, came from the roof and got to her, grabbed her, and got her out of there. It was pretty cool. We watched it from afar. Back to feeling like a loser again. Well, I'm still a loser. I'm on a berm and on Nasiriyah. Been here living under my Humvee, and these guys roll in, pull the rescue of the year off, and then go back to their 5-star in Riyadh. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
I'm excited to introduce to you the newest member of my family. We call him Stanley. We got Stanley this past Christmas, and pretty quickly my focus became making sure he was safe while still giving him the freedom to actually be a dog. I went looking for the top-rated GPS fence, the #1, and that's how I found Spot On. Stanley wears their Nova collar. With Spot On, I set up a GPS fence for Stanley right on my phone. No physical fence, no leash. I just walk my property line or draw it on the map, and that's the boundary the collar recognizes. I can create multiple fences, save them, and adjust them whenever I need to. So whether we're at home or traveling, Stanley always knows where his boundaries are. Another thing that stood out to me is these collars are designed right here in the USA and assembled in New Hampshire by a team that's been working with high-precision GPS technology for years. And you can tell a lot of attention went into making this thing reliable. The Nova collar uses a dual-band GPS system connected to more than 150 satellites, along with an antenna that's over 5 times larger than typical GPS fence collars. That keeps the boundary accurate, even around trees, terrain, and changing conditions. Spot On's true location technology has been independently tested and delivers 99.3% containment, which matters when you're trusting something with your dog's safety. It's incredibly durable, and on top of that, I can check his location in real time, send voice commands directly to the collar, and track his activity through the day. I use Spot On so Stanley gets the freedom to run and explore, and I get the peace of mind knowing he's safe. Let your dog roam with Spot On. Go to spotonfence.com/SRS and use code SRS for $50 off the Nova collar. That's spotonfence.com/SRS and use code SRS for $50 off. So did you engage anybody in those couple months?
During that ambush, there was pop shots we would take. You had some idiots, man, that you gotta remember the ROEs at the beginning there really weren't any. Once like every male of fighting age became kind of like, well, okay, that's a bad guy. That's a bad guy. And you realize in that first couple of months, dudes were taking their uniforms off and they were wearing civilian clothes. You weren't fighting an army. You were fighting what you thought were army guys dressed in civilian clothes, but there wasn't a lot of engagement at the beginning for any of those early SEAL platoons. That ambush, I definitely was shooting at those guys, and then to the right of me, I think was the AOIC, and to the left of me was my comms guy, Zach. But everyone else was just still trying to figure out what the hell was going on, get on nods, and kind of get online. But by the time they even figured it out, it was over, And I know our 50 gunner up top on the Humvee was taking shots from time to time at different stuff, but nothing like what was to come. The future of, the SEAL teams in Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, holy shit. Yeah. It was game on. But we were at the beginning when, you still had leadership that was very, like I said, a little risk adverse. No one's dying on my watch kind of attitude.
Yeah.
You know, of course, no one wants to die on your watch, but I remember at our debrief at the end, and it was, it was Captain Harwood and our SEAL Team 3 head shed, and a big portion of that was a letdown, you know, and I told them, like, hey, you know, when they're like, hey, you guys have any comments or concern? It's like, yeah, you know, like, this is the pinnacle and could be the only opportunity that a SEAL has to, you know, shoot people in the face, what he's trained to do. And you guys kind of hamstrung it, prevented it. Like, you took that away from a bunch of guys, you know. If it wasn't for some of these reserve commanders we ended up working for, the Marine Corps, you know, probably wouldn't have been able to do anything. But once those guys kind of didn't have oversight over us, that was the only reason we were able to, like, actually do some fun stuff, you know.
Man.
Yeah. But obviously it all changed once some more motivated, aggressive leadership got in there, man. Then game was on, right? So
Yeah.
it was an interesting time. You know, it was awesome. I wouldn't take any of it back or change it because everything has to evolve. You know, it's just the way it is. And when you take a bunch of SEAL teams and say, okay, now we're going to war, and it'd been, you know, 20, 30 years since anybody had really done true combat, then you start with the training wheels and eventually, you know, get to the point where guys are just crushing the enemy left and right every night.
It's interesting, you know, how you describe it. A bunch of reserve officers who had never been to war,
Yeah.
all scurrying out like a bunch of cockroaches
Oh, yeah.
going to war
Yeah.
to prevent everybody to actually fight.
To go to war. Yeah. Yeah. I
A
know.
bunch of pussies,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of unfortunate moments with the leadership. And I mean, even I'm probably giving them excuses as we speak, but, you know, that, oh, well, you know, we hadn't been to combat. We hadn't done this. We hadn't done that. But the truth is the truth at the end of the day for those guys.
Yeah.
And they know who they are. So,
There's a lot of them.
yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Well, came
Look
back
at-
from that trip, and that's when I was like, I was kind of disgruntled. I was sailor of the quarter, sailor of the year, put my officer package together. I was back at Team 3, and I was about to do my board. And I think it was like the day prior, I took my OCS package and just, was it OCS or Seaman Admiral? It was one of the programs. I just threw it in the trash right in front of my CO. I was like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to work with you guys. I want to stay with my guys, you know?
Wow.
So dumped it in the trash, and then the next guy in line took it. I think he's still in, actually. He's like, he's got to be a captain. But yeah, totally threw that in the trash and was like, just didn't want to be part of that, you know? And plus we both know if you want to operate for the long haul, you stay enlisted, you know? And I wasn't there for the retirement. I wasn't even thinking about that, you know? I knew I was going to do 20, nothing more, nothing less. And I didn't care about the retirement. Something every now and then I'm kind of like, maybe I should have, but you know, I still wouldn't change it. The enlisted world runs the show, and you got to confirm that once you get to the East Coast that the enlisted do run the show out there. But yeah, I got back, threw my officer package in the trash, and then my master chief, you know, had told me about a new program, and they were doing a screening and selection for. It sounded interesting. It sounded different. I was like, sure. So I went to WARCOM, and it was a new initiative led by Admiral Callan at the time. I walk into this conference room. I got like my dress whites on, and sit down. It's a bunch of people in civilian clothing. I didn't know anybody except for the Master Chief, and he was in civilian clothing. I kind of look at him like, hey, what's up? You sit down. They're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, good. Like, go ahead and turn around in your chair. I was like, okay. So I turn around in my chair. Now they're all at my back, and I'm looking at the door I walked in. I get handed a piece of paper that's on a clipboard and a pencil. I'm like, go ahead and draw the quarterdeck that you walked through 2 minutes ago. And I'm like, oh shit. Was I paying attention? And I started sketching overhead. I remember, okay, there's the front desk, there's the doors, there's some doors over here, there's an American flag, some chairs, and I put my, cardinal bearing, north arrow down at the bottom. Like, oh, this sucks. I don't fucking know if this is even right. I'm like, okay. And they're like, okay, turn around. Go ahead and tell us what you saw. I'm like, well, I think I saw, and I kind of describe everything in my drawing. I show them the drawing. I kind of go over it real quick, and then they're like, okay. And so then they start asking a series of questions, like, where you been? What have you done? They gave me some scenarios. You're in a bar overseas, guy walks in with a slung AK-47. What are you going to do? I'm like, oh, watch the guy, pay attention, make sure I take note of it, orientate myself properly inside that bar to where this guy's at, and they're like, okay. And it's a lot of questions like that, very scenario driven. And then they, what was it they had like this small little like cup, and they had a bunch of broken down writing pens inside, all the springs, the ink cartridge, the tops and the bottoms. And then they had a stopwatch. And they're like, okay, go ahead and put all those pens together. Like, okay. So can dump it. And I'm like putting these, spring, cartridge, put it down into the bottom, put it in the top, function test. Okay, do the next one. They were all different makes and models of pens. And it's like, that's weird. And then they had some math problems. So they gave me the math problems. I wrote them down. They're like, okay. They time it. It was like basic algebra stuff, something like that. Did those. And then they were like, okay, turn back around. And turn back around in my chair. And they're like, starting from left to right, everybody introduce themselves. Go ahead and tell who each person is. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, that's definitely one thing I suck at, I was like, but I'll give it my best try while I'm talking to this door in front of me, right? I'm like, okay, so I think the first guy was Frank. I know that the next guy was Billy because I worked with him. Next guy I think was, Phil, or something. I just, I don't even know. I didn't know anybody's name. I was just like fucking fumbling through it, and I could hear them kind of laughing a little bit. So I was like, okay, thank God. At least they see the humor in this. And then they're like, okay, what were the first 3 questions we asked you? I was like, damn it. It's like, you asked me to draw the quarterdeck. You asked me to tell them a little bit about myself. And then you guys started introducing yourselves, And this thing, I think it was like an hour interview. It was really odd,
Sounds like it.
Had no idea what was going on and what it was for. And they're like, okay, thanks. I'm like, all right. I walk out. As I walk out, now there's like probably 20 other SEALs in their dress whites all standing there waiting. I was the first. I guess I was the first to go. I saw another dude I knew. I saw a couple other guys I knew. And they all were going in for the same interview, And go back to the team, and a couple of weeks goes by, and I'm not really even thinking about it anymore. And my command mass chief at Team 3 pulls me in, and he's like, hey, we're going to, there was a program. I don't know if, you did your interview and stuff. They called, and so, we're going to send you over there like TAD at first, see if they like you. And I'm like, send me where? And they're like, to WARCOM. I'm like, well, what am I doing? They're like, oh, they'll tell you that stuff when you get there. And so I get over there and check in, and there's nothing permanent because they just wanted to, it was me, another guy that was in my platoon, actually, one of my lead comms guys. And then there was like 2 or 3 other SEAL senior chief and a master chief that I didn't really know that well, but I knew of them. And they sat us down and said, all right, find, fix, finish. We're really good at finish as a community. We're okay at fix, as long as it's like rural-based reconnaissance, like, you know, recce team, snipers. That's about all we know about getting a fix on a target, right? We know nothing about the urban side of getting a fix someone. So what we are tasked to build with basically unlimited budget, and it's a ready go, work as fast as you can, is build the fix and the find for the community starting right now. And we're like, well, what the, I don't know, it's the first time I've ever heard of find, fix, finish, you know? And so they kind of explain it to us, you know, well, find is really all the ints. At the time, there was SIG int, there was HUM int. Now you got 100 of them, you know? We're like, okay. And they're like, what is that? You know? And it was just, hey, ready, go figure it out. And so with the power of the Admiral and an unlimited budget, civilian clothes, and basically got blue badged into every agency in DC. And carte blanche, ready, go, figure it out. And that's what we did. And so we went to everyone to figure out, well, how do you find bad guys? And, okay, now if we're going to build a program, what would it look like? And then we put together at the group level, group 1 and group 2, we put little cells of guys together as force multipliers to start helping on educating the force and determining, you know, how to do this. And this was all pre-GWAT. And so we got really far, really fast and built the entire ASO program for Naval Special Warfare, then built the AFO program. So my buddy covered down on ASO, but the Army was the proponency for ASO. They ran that. And then we became the proponent for AFO, and we ran ours. And then I eventually got it certified through SOCOM, and it became the first like joint course. And so there's a lot in there because we were deploying. We'd go overseas, work for an embassy, not really have a job, and come back and say, okay, I think this is what we need. And then go, all right, build a course. Let's educate some guys and then send them over to fill that void. And then, but what we realize is once you have a foothold in an embassy, that is the magic in the whole program. So it was like, all right, we need to get guys over there. Well, we don't have enough SEALs. Okay, put an intel kit over there. So then we learned, start grabbing people from the fleet, start drawing in. We're going to build this thing out. Get footholds of the embassies. Once you have a foothold, operationally, then everything else comes from there. And so it was very, very strategic. It was very operational, and it was very tactical all at the same time. So I was learning through a fire hose, agency level shit, at the national level, then at the operational, then at the tactical, and going, okay, well, how do we put all this together? And then you had Admiral Callan and even McCraven, because McCraven had started a thing called Quantum Leap, I think, prior to all this. And I was privy to it when I was trying to learn, like, well, how do we build something in light speed so that we can get our guys involved in outside the theaters of war and truly operational prep of the environment, which used to be called operational prep of the battle space. Congress didn't like the word battle space because it intends that we're going to do something nefarious there. So they changed it to environment. And we started just mapping it out. But McCraven had one thing that was so sticky that I remembered, and I still use it to this day. And it was, if I were to send you, Shawn, to China right now by yourself, how would you take out an aircraft carrier by yourself? And it's a pretty impossible thing. Getting into the country, the layers of security, when you dial in and look at the ports and harbors there, you're not getting close to an aircraft carrier in that country. But how can you take it out? And then the quantum leap aspect of it, when you start thinking strategically, was, well, I don't have to get near that. I can go 20 piers down to the tugboats that have zero security. And if I take out every single tugboat in that harbor, that aircraft carrier isn't moving, right? And then that one example just set my creativity and everything we started doing on fire. I was like, wow, That's what we need to be doing. That's how you get ahead, because that is all about how you think and allowing Frogman to be as creative as possible. The tugboat theory became the theory, right? And so then it was like, okay, now we can build on that. So we started with the education and the deployment simultaneously. So anytime I wasn't like putting a course together or testing out a course, then I was going overseas. And it was awesome because you got to wear all these different hats all the time, every day. And then, so then we partnered with Army, USASOC for all the ASO billets. And then we started contracting. You know, you had a bunch of Army guys get out and start companies that taught ASO. So then we started using them. And then I was running the AFO and defining it. Like, okay, what is advanced force operations, and mapping it out and really getting into it. And what all does it include? You know, so we break out the doctrine. So it included, you know, joint RSO&I, which is reception, staging, onward integration, and movement. So RSO&I was like, okay, what is that? At the conventional level, it's how the Army moves 100 Apaches to Kuwait, right? Reception, staging, onward integration into combat. If you think about it, it's a logistics nightmare. What does that mean for me and you? Me as a singleton? It's like, how do I get a troop of 22 guys from the beach to the safe site, put them on target, they annihilate everybody with non-attrib weapons and ammunition, back to the safe site, sanitize them, back out to the ocean, and then I go around, sanitize everything they did before the sun comes up, and start my day job, right? So that's what became RSO&I for Naval Special Warfare. Missions like that. And we knew there was people out there already doing it, but Admiral Cowan's like, we're taking that from them, and we're going to do it through excellence and professionalism and creativity. And we started building these programs. We started putting people in embassies. I mean, everything all at once, as fast as possible. And it became a program of record and became a big deal for Naval Special Warfare.
Yeah, it was a huge deal.
You guys, people that followed, ended up learning all the TTL stuff and basic electronics, electricity, like the AFO course I built. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, you started with getting your concealed carry classes. We had district attorneys in all the major cities buy off on it. You got creds, you got guns, you were packing the whole course. And then you would go to, initially it was TSS, Technical Surveillance Science in New Orleans. They would teach you basic electronics, electricity, modification of consumer products, lock picking, alarms. Once you got all the tech under your belt, tracking, all that stuff, then you would go into physical surveillance mode. We had the Brits coming over teaching physical surveillance. They were all MI5, MI6, SAS guys.
I took that course.
Did you?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Did I put you through?
No, it was just them.
Later?
I think it was that course.
Merlin?
So it was a contract, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to do the Bosnia thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like when this first popped up on my radar. So I guess that would have been 04, I believe.
Yeah,
04,
that was
05.
presented as test.
And then I got switched and I wound up going to Afghanistan. But I went through the whole course. It's probably the best course I've taken.
Yeah.
In the teams.
I had so much pride in that thing, man. I was
surveillance, counter surveillance, running ops from Richmond to Virginia Beach.
Yep.
How to blend in, like the shit we were talking about this morning.
Yeah.
I remember they'd take us to they'd put us in. We'd start walking around the mall, and then it became a couple of city blocks, and then it became all in Norfolk, and then it became. Then they introduced cars and vehicles, and then all the way up from Richmond down, and it was getting into top floor of Bank of America building and all kinds of shit. It was awesome, and they'd put you in uncomfortable. You would have a target that you had to follow or whatever, and they would always take you into the most awkward, Victoria's Secret, a baby store. Places we don't belong that you feel uncomfortable, and then they would confront you there, and you would have to figure out how to act normal, or they'd walk into an elevator, and one of the guys on the team would follow them in, and what time is it? It's like, oh shit! But it was, and there was no shooting, no explosives, no jumping out of planes, and it was my favorite course.
Yeah. Some guys had a knack for it and loved it, and some had a knack for it and shouldn't never do it just because.
I was pissed. They were going to take me to, I guess they were like, they had an augment to somewhere in the UK.
Yes.
And I got selected for it. And
You would have loved that. It was a great build.
Yeah, I was pissed.
Yeah.
And then then we went to Afghanistan, which, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's nothing but good deals back then, It was like every day was a good deal. For me, running and building and kind of putting that whole thing together, and then also deploying at the same time and testing it, I remember the first offensive technical stuff, right? I remember it was in Djibouti, and our first sales pitch was, hey, our guys can do source vetting. Wow, how do you guys do source vetting? Well, when you're vetting somebody and you have them come to a hotel or whatever, we can exploit their car because guys know how to break into cars, and we can exploit their briefcase if they have a briefcase, blah, 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 right? It was just to sell the technical capability that a guy can do these things, right? It was very defensive, and but it worked like a charm. Hey, we can set up camera cars for you, right? Take the case officer's car, rip it apart, put cameras, outward looking, inward looking, put it all back together, because they learn all this stuff in the course, And the BEE portion of the course, I feel like, whether guys realize it or not, was the most important aspect, especially when you fast forward, when things started getting more advanced, because that basic electronics, electricity package, that's what allowed what later that I would call like a true, back to our roots, a naked warrior program. If you look at, World War II, whatever, the guys with their UDTs, a knife in their mouth, and fins, and a mask, and go get it done with a 22-pound haversack. And I was like, okay, well, you could take that concept. How do you apply it now? The modern day version of the naked warrior is an operator who's transitioned to operative, right? Operator being a guy who wears body armor, camis, night vision, kicks indoors, and shoot people in the face. Now you've transitioned that same guy with that same experience to an operative, where he's business casual, flying business class. He doesn't have 21 other dudes stacked up behind him. All the success, all the failure resides solely on him. He's got as much cash as he needs. He takes off from Dulles. He goes overseas. He gets the job done and comes back. Right? Mm-hmm. That's the dream job. And I was like, yeah, A
lot of guys didn't like that.
No, I know.
That was what I was very drawn to that from the get-go. I was like, this shit is cool.
Yeah, it is sexy. Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. And
nice work putting that together.
Oh, yeah. No, it was awesome. And it just kept evolving it every year. And then we solidified it all, got rid of all the contractors. We housed it at the NSA. Now you could teach everything in a skiff, secure it, lock it down, and then take it to the next level, which is kind of where it ended up. That's where its home ended up being. Majority of the course was run out of the NSA, and you had all their assets and everything that they brought to bear that made it like 1,000 times more professional, made it very secure, and then being that close to all the other agencies, it became like a reputable, course of instruction that, like I said, even SOCOM signed off on it. And instead of WARCOM funding it, it became a SOCOM funded thing and took off.
So did you take this over to development group too?
So that's kind of how part of it. Yeah. So
because you went over there to Black Squadron, right?
Yeah.
But you weren't an assaulter. It wasn't like through Green Team and all that stuff. You went over to Black Squadron, and that's kind of, from what I understand, this is what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. I laugh because, when you're a non-green teamer inside that fence line, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. I've heard.
Especially if you're a deploying, guy inside of a troop, it took a couple of years for me to build the trust. But so once I built that course and it was kind of like an autopilot, then I moved out to DC. I was helping with the course. We built a NSW det DC, and it was one billet. I sat in it, and you were liaison to anybody. Like, I got pulled into so much stuff I can't remember half of it. Like if you're an enlisted operationally sitting in a basically a C billet, right? A deployable billet in DC, you'll have every agency coming in, hey, can you go do this for us? Hey, can you go do that for us? I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. And at the same time, so I was attached to NSA, but representing Naval Special Warfare inside the Beltway. And so I got pulled into countless things. I did a lot of cool deployments. That was where one of the deployments that kind of led to me becoming more, independent and doing the singleton stuff was Bin Laden's boats, right? Bin Laden had 27 vessels. And they had like a 3-ring binder of these vessels and pictures and stuff. And they're like, man, we need to get these things like tagged, And I think the initial idea was like the third deck at Fort Meade having this Tom Clancy room with all these screens and being able to see, all 27 vessels on a global screen, I think that was the idea. But so the first little gig was, hey, we got this boat called it was called the Jamil. And it's a smaller metal tanker, not really that big. And it was supposedly sitting in the Djibouti port and harbor, right? And so it was like, all right, let's go put a fucking tracking device on this thing. And so that was like kind of like the first trial run. And I was working a lot with all of your TTL companies.
Did you do it?
Creatively, yeah. Yeah, we pulled it off.
How did you do it?
Literally went in there and put it on there. So this is where cover and all that kind of stuff, right? We were kind of still learning, but the duty-free shop inside the Djibouti port and harbor is a duty-free shop. And a lot of times, if you're a Westerner, you can get away with going in there and buying cigarettes, buying alcohol, whatever, right? And so there was a lot of recce's involved. We built a camera car, took a car, break it apart, put outward looking cameras, put it all back together, and then drive through there. And it took some time to actually find it, but it was its color scheme. It was green with a white superstructure. And so we knew, okay, got to get that. And then once we ID'd it, they had literally taken paint and painted over Jamil and like had some other name written on the side of it, and in the nautical world, every like aviation, everything's English, right? So so it makes it a little more bearable to figure things out. And it had some other name, and but we knew which boat it was, and so once we kind of figured out the pattern of life of the port and harbor at night and different times of day, and then also the guys at the front gate, you realize, okay, they're lax. They're not like security. They're just guys checking vehicles coming in, just management of the flow of people coming in and out. And then, once we figured it out, we were like, okay, it was me and another team guy, and like, let's go ahead and see if we can pull this off tonight. Oh, there was one other piece to this. So I think it was the agency had someone who had access, who worked in the port and harbor. And so we built first generation camera with RF antenna into a pack of cigarettes with a little pinhole. And, this was back when we were using these Sony X-View cameras you could buy online, put it all together in this cheesy little RF device, and it would push back, and it was video, so it wouldn't push very far. And we put it in the kid's backpack. It had a mesh exterior pocket, so we put the cigarettes down in there, made sure that everything lined up just right, glued it all in place, made this kid wear this backpack, and then he went on board and was able to film the inside. And it filmed locally, but it also pushed. Of course, once he got into the skin, it went static. And then we were able to collect the rest of it once it came out. So we knew like, oh, okay, now we know the inside of this thing. We knew the outside. And then went over there one night. They had a ladder going up, to the side of the boat, no different than any other Navy vessel, from the deck up the ladder, and just kind of dressed like they dress, acted like we owned it, walked up, and were able to drop the device. There was like wood paneling and wood deck on a portion of this thing. And in any device, it has to be able to just see the sky. That's the most important thing. And make sure that it's not behind metal, right? It can be behind fiberglass, wood. It can be pretty much behind anything. But it has to be able to see satellites so the device knows exactly where it's at. And it also has to be able to communicate with us or whatever device it's talking to. Early on, they had what was called MAT tags, multi-access tags. And so it can communicate through SIM cards, it can communicate through satellite, it can communicate RF if I do a drive-by and collect the information off of it. Literally dropped it in there. It was nothing sexy. And then got out of that damn harbor as quick as we could. And Fred, the team guy with me, was driving, get back in the car. As we're driving, and he was so fucking paranoid. He's like, we're being followed. And we ended up creating our own little like crazy on the fly SDR back to where we were staying. And, I don't think anybody was following us, but it felt like someone was following us, and it was probably just,
I think in those, at least in my experience, just human paranoia.
Yes.
You always feel like somebody's following you or watching you in those situations.
For sure. And we were fumble fucking through it. We didn't know what we were doing. And then you come back and you go, okay, where did I fail on that? And it's like SDRs, Tradecraft, just taking the risk of a harbor that was okay lit, but we were fortunate that one happened to be in dark, and we got lucky with a lot of the environmentals that you just didn't think to take into consideration. You're just kind of like, fuck it, let's just do it.
Did you have any cover?
No.
I didn't think so.
Nothing. Then and then we just advanced it from there, everything. We advanced the tags. These companies were working at building tags. And it just kind of grew from there. We had another Bin Laden boat, another run. This one was I think it was called the Hamor. It's named after the Persian Gulf has these huge fish, big black fish. They're like bass of the sea. They're massive, and they're not scared of humans, but I think they're called the Hamor. This thing was named after it. And that one was anchored. They're like, yeah, go out there and tag it. And it's like, okay, well, we weren't advanced enough for that yet. You had turtle high, turtle low systems. Remember those you train with? It's like a magnet. And we thought about doing that, but those things can be seen if they pull into a port or a harbor. So, but yeah, that was the kind of the kickoff first like vessel. And I think by the end of the run, I was the only guy who had tagged vehicles, vessels, and even like a shoe. Sold the shoe.
How'd you tag that?
Oh man. So the lead negotiator and leader of the Somali pirates was standing on the side of the road in Bosaso, Somalia one day, broad daylight, on his phone. And some of our guys, when I say our, the PIS, which is the Puntland Intelligence Service, which is a bunch of Somalis that I've been in a bunch of times and trained these guys, and there's some crazy stories associated with that, but teaching them surveillance. And they like see these guys. They rolled them up. I wasn't there. I'd just come in like a couple days later. So they see him on the side of the road. And so they square the block, come back and grab him and throw him in the back of their truck, right? And take him to the safe site. And and at this point, you fast forward, we now have NSW guys, part of the very program that I had kind of built, the SA, I don't know if you remember, they had these special activity teams that have been given, a bunch of different names, but it was basically a command of team guys that now sitting in these houses in different areas now. It's like, wow, this thing is advanced, So they're holding on to this guy. And so we roll in and they're like, so here's the deal. There's this whole like political issue. You got the three main clans in Somalia, and the elderlies have to kind of buy off on like this guy going away. This is the guy that was on the radio talking to Jonas and those other Gold Squadron guys and different people for or red hybrid. You had Jonas though, Killsaw, who's on, Extortion 17 guy, who was like on the radio and doing all the creative talking back and forth with the Somali pirate leader negotiator. So when you're watching the movie Captain Phillips, there's the voice on the radio. This is that guy.
Okay.
These guys just rolled up because they see him standing on the side of the road.
No shit.
Yeah. And he is, a rock star in Somalia. And he brought in the biggest part of their economy. Somalia imports everything, and it only exports one thing. Can you guess what that is? It's the largest exporter of camels.
Cod.
Well, they import cot.
Import cod.
From Ethiopia. Yeah. Those cot planes come in, land at about 11 a.m. Cot trucks go out to the cot stands all over Somalia. All the cot stands have cot by about 1 p.m. And then by about 3 or 4, the entire country, cheeks are full of cot and they're high and they're just wandering around like zombies with literally they got their cheeks full and 2 cigarettes hanging out of their mouths. So you can count on them all being high, and you can get away with a lot during that time, obviously, when you just like we always do, you just use the culture against them. But should have been a shorter story, but they wrap the guy up, gives you context to who he is, and then it's a thing. We couldn't just snag him if we wanted to maintain support with the little support we had in Somalia. So all of those, like the PIS, the Puntland Intelligence Service, we had the kind of the same version, other places. And so they all had to kind of agree, right? They're like, hey, you're going to take this guy who's the biggest part of our economy. All his ransom money was funding that country, right? Millions and millions of dollars, right? So it was political. They're like, we want to pull him. So there was this back and forth. And then there was this point when they were like, hey, we got to let him go. And we're like, what? And I'm there at that point. And I happened to I always like carried all these different tags with me everywhere I went. And I had a Black Squadron tech with me. And they were like, well, hey, so how do we were told, hey, like, make sure you tag him. We're like, tag him? So, they had stripped him down and put him in like some, their own clothes, and kind of took his own clothes. And we created this whole storyline on how to get his clothes and his shoes and everything. And then we're like, one thing about Somalis is they always are, interestingly, they're always dressed nice. They got slacks on, long sleeve shirts, untucked, somewhat clean shaven. They're always kind of moving with a purpose, going from point A to point B. And always like leather dress shoes with the old school wooden soles. And so we took his shoes, pulled out the insoles, had a Dremel, put the tag in there, put it back. We put his shoes on, walked around in them, making sure it didn't feel different than the other. Made sure it was heavily concealed, everything glued back in place. And then we were like, all right, here's the test. It was the day to release him. And so, they gave him his clothes and he got dressed, he put his shoes on. He didn't act any different, kind of watching him. Let him out the front door, went and dropped him off, but basically let him go, knowing that, okay, we got to potentially grab this dude if he runs or whatever. The clan leaders, don't come to a decision on this guy. So, I feel like a week or so went by and everybody agreed. And then, they ended up lighten up that area so that his tag would reflect back. It worked, kept track of him the whole time. It's really cool. And then eventually rolled him up. They basically ran a rendition package on him, where move him from jet to jet. He doesn't touch sovereign territory so that he can't, pull any bullshit with the attorneys. And then he showed up in New York one day and put on trial, and he's sitting in prison in New York. Wow. All those crimes against, U.S. companies, citizens, all that. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah. Who would have thought, though, the guys would just throw him in the back of the truck, while you stand on the side of the road. I mean, it's kind of, sometimes you get lucky.
Damn.
Yeah. And here's another interesting, that particular tag was invented and created by no other than Mitch Bradley. So everyone knows who Admiral Mitch Bradley has been in the news a lot because of the strikes against drug boats in
No shit.
South America. He's our current, is he Southcom or whatever?
I have no idea. I guess he would be, right?
But when he was, I don't know, when he was in 04 and 05, he was at JSOC, and I don't know where he worked in like science and technology or something, but he created this tag. It's fucking smart.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
What were you doing in Yemen?
We were always in and out of there. Primarily, those were during the AAA days. Anwar al-Awlaki. Anwar was controversial because he was an American citizen. He was the guy that was on, back in the day, YouTube allowed everything and censored nothing, believe it or not. And so back then you had people in orange pajamas getting their heads chopped off by Al-Qaeda. You had everything on there, man. And one of the most prominent propaganda guys for Al-Qaeda was a guy named Anwar al-Awlaki that we nicknamed AAA. And he, U.S. educated, U.S. citizen, but from Yemen. His dad is a wealthy guy in Sana'a. But he was their lead propaganda guy. He had a magazine called Inspire to inspire people to radicalize. It had a lot of radical Islam articles in it, but the biggest thing is it always provided, it was a true magazine, printed and published, and it had diagrams to how to build bombs, S-vests, IEDs, vehicle ID, I mean, you name it. And it was everywhere. And then he had his YouTube channel where he radicalized probably more people than bin Laden ever did. If you look at the 2 Boston Marathon bombers, they're radicalized by Anwar's videos. If you look at the Fort Hood shooter, radicalized by AAA. And there was plenty. The shoe bomber, the reason we were taking our shoes off at TSA for so long is because of AAA. The underwear bomber, right? Luckily, we didn't have to take our underwear off at TSA, but I'm sure they thought about it. No underwear allowed. But he influenced more people and radicalized more young Americans and young Muslims than anyone else out of all of Al-Qaeda. And so he's basically considered, I think, number 2. Once the command killed number 1, then he became number 1, and he was in Yemen. And so a lot of our trips in and out of there was just really targeting him. The CIA on drone strikes had missed him like 2 or 3 times in a row. He would come into Sana'a from time to time, and they'd always try to hit him on the highway going back out to wherever he lived out in the middle of nowhere, and it didn't work. And so then eventually, once we had a foothold at that embassy, I think the agency was like, hey, what can you guys do? And so I went over, and it was to tag his vehicle. I was like, all right, this is cool, And he had a driver that would always park outside of a 24/7 convenience store. And he would park that damn car right in front of the glass. And the cashier inside conveniently pointed outward towards cars parked right there. And over there, the deal. They park up on the sidewalk, so he would put this thing like danger close, the bumper to the glass. I mean, there was barely any room to actually walk on the sidewalk. And it was, you could tell it was with purpose. His driver did this on purpose, keep that vehicle under watch 24/7, or at least when it was parked there. And across the street was like this hotel, shitty ass hotel of sorts. And so once we kind of figured that out, we would roll in and set up recce cars, camera cars, park them, leave them, collect, go back, drive them away, see what we could collect on the driver, get ID quality. This was all spread out over time, but eventually we got ID quality of the driver, figured out which kind of car. Then we go out in town, procure and or commandeer the exact same car, bring that back to our place, break the car down, rehearse, figure out how we're going to do it, this and that. And then my task force SCA is like, hey, you know, you can be as creative as you want on this. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? It's like, well, you know, if you got to like steal a van or steal something, you know, and, you know, come up with something creative so that you can park right next to it and knock it out real quick. And I was like, okay. So took his hint, like started looking around like, okay, we need to steal a van now. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to commandeering a vehicle for covert operations, you know, and, believe it or not, the closest van were these Army guys, like US guys. So I like kind of ask discreetly, hey, can we just steal their van? He's like, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm like, oh. So now I'm stealing these guys' van that they bought. I'm just like, well, hell, that's the best way to do it. Take a van, known people, blah, 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 steal it from them. At least don't tell them about it, just borrow it. So we borrow it. And then I have one of the techs go out in town, buy like a thermite torch, and we cut a hellhole into this floor of the van, right? And turn it into this hatch. And then we buckled down a spare tire to it. So that if under inspection, it looked, you know, if you opened up the back of the van, you just saw a spare tire that, you know, was locked down to the floor. And, you know, this kid did a great job. I was like, man, you did a good job, buddy. Give yourself a Bronze Star after this deployment, you know, like everyone else, you know. And so the idea was, you know, hey, we're going to pull up next to this thing. And with that guy sitting inside at his little cash register, you can have guys in the back, open up the trap door, drop down to the street, roll from underneath the van to underneath the target vehicle, and do your thing. And so we had one guy, I think he was a Blue Squadron guy, pull the recce. He was out on the street. He was our Overwatch. And then I was team leader for this whole team of guys. And so I ran team lead and full disguise. I had my Yemenis mask on and my man dress. And Yemenis like to wear their like a blazer. It's kind of something that sets them apart. And they wear their headdress instead of on their head. They wear it kind of over their blazer. And so I was looking at me, drove everything, drove the vehicle. Happened to be a parking spot. Got lucky right next to the target vehicle, and parked next to it. Kind of looking at this guy. Light up a cigarette. Start letting my mask smoke. Crack the window. Look like I'm just going to hang out. That's nothing unusual for that environment. And then as soon as I saw him look away, went back behind the curtain. He was all blacked out. Kind of like how we had our own concealment built into the back of this van that didn't look anything weird or could pass inspection. Open up the door, hit the deck, roll under the vehicle. So had a brand new tracking. It had double satellite hockey pucks. It had double cell phone antennas, which are look like black thumb depressors or tongue depressors, you know, on a wire. Bottom line is you had like 4 or 5 things you had to conceal. Rehearsal is basically a piece of cardboard on your chest once you're underneath this thing, and you're mixing these like super potent epoxy, and you squeeze it out of the tube, squeeze it on there, mix it around, and then you start fucking gluing shit everywhere. Double zip tie, did everything, you know, make it look right. Back into the vehicle. Get back to the front seat when the guy wasn't looking. And then, no big deal. The Overwatch cleared us. Everything was good to go. Pull out of there, leave. Boom. Got a tracking device on Yemen Awlaki's car. Go back. We're all proud and happy. Pull it up. Tracking's good. pinging on all 4 channels. Like, this is awesome. So next day, thing starts moving around Sanaa, this and that, goes and does some things, login. We're able to kind of bounce all this information off other people. And then right at like around the 24-hour mark, drops. Nothing. Not one thing. Double cell phone, dropped. Double satellite, dropped. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened to this thing? What did he, go get an oil change? And the guy, there's a risk to all this. You go get an oil change, puts it on a rack, and they see something, right? And then find something leads to everything else. There's risk. And we're like, holy fuck. And it was a huge success, and now it's not. You're like, and that's the thing about that world is, it's like all the success, all the failure resides solely on you sometimes, or you and your, if you got a couple of techs with you or whatever, like, motherfucker, man. So then I'm like leveraging everything. I have Fort Meade or NSA dialing in on Yemenis phone network, trying to figure out where it lost and this and that, and pulling all these resources, on their switchboards to figure out what happened. Couldn't figure it out. Time goes by, valuable time. Now we're back to pulling surveillance on the hotel. Now, 2 or 3 nights later, he's not parking there anymore. We're like, fuck.
Burned.
Possibly burned. Like, I think about 7-day mark. And I'm already stressed out, can't eat. This is one of those things where you just don't want to go that way. And
what were you guys going to do? Drone strike it?
There was a lot of courses of action. You can imagine, this was, at the time, McCraven was JSOC. And so very aggressive. Mitch Bradley, the same admiral, it's been in the news lately, was my boss. So yeah, there was a lot of courses of action because drones hadn't worked. So it was like, let's do it differently. What that was, who knows? And so turns out 7-day mark, after every phone call, I was talking to tracking companies, agencies, all of the tech components of everything. This isn't going to surprise you, but JSOC stopped paying the bill on all of the communication components of that particular device.
Wow.
Yeah. And for me, I was like, oh, thank God, because I'm running that op. It's mine. And of course, 1 minute, you're the rock star. The next minute, it's that whole hero to zero thing, and definitely felt it in that moment. And then it was like, oh. So then we know the problem. You could fire it back up. At this point, that thing, I think a week later, started pinging out in the middle of nowhere. They'd just gone back out to where they lived. And, but it gave valuable information. It gave a pattern of life that then was used later to eventually kill the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we were there. I spent a lot of time in Yemen.
We probably crossed paths. Glenn.
My favorite place to work.
I ran into Glenn. Do you know that coffee shop that was supposedly owned by the American couple? They lived, and it was over by the embassy. It was walled in. It was outdoor cafe in Sanaa.
Yeah.
Supposedly owned by this American, near the shawarma spot.
Yeah.
Owned by an American company. Like, what's an American couple own a fucking coffee shop in Sanaa, Yemen? Had all kinds of antennas on top of it because they lived there too. So I remember I was going in and Glenn was coming out. We like literally bump into each other and like, oh, hey, American? American. Yeah. Speak English? Yeah. You want to get a coffee with me? Sure. We're kind of putting on the act. Just in case somebody's watching. Go back inside, get coffee. It was fucking last time I saw the guy too. That was it. That was his trip to Yemen. He came back home. I didn't get to see him. And then going over to relieve Ty was the next trip. But yeah. It's pretty, God, it's such a small world in that world.
Yeah.
There's, you'd run into the same dudes and you're always like, are we the only ones like doing this shit around the globe? Because that's kind of scary if it's true.
very
Everyone's going to recognize us at some point, you know?
Well, shit. I mean, today you can't even do it
No.
with all the facial recognition and all that stuff. I mean, I've heard that you can't even get fake passports anymore. You can't really do any undercover.
No, yeah, when I was leaving, everything I think was going, back to true. The agency was leading the way, but yeah, you couldn't. And even with masks, I have my Arab mask and I have my Somali, and it even got to the point where there's certain thermal that you if that's running, you can see it. So you have to assume, like, once there's a piece of technology out there that can burn it, that particular piece of equipment, then you can't ever use it. You can't trust that it won't be seen or seen through or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was powerful. Disguise was very powerful there for a while, like deception point of view. And we were the only ones really using it offensively, Jeff and I. The agencies always use disguise as kind of like go meet a source you never met before, or when you're shitting in your own backyard kind of stuff. But we were the only ones kind
That was a hard place to hide, even with the local GARM. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's so tribal there. I mean, we would walk these assets and through the whole city and clean them. Walk them through metal detectors and malls and whatever.
Yeah.
To clean them before they finally got to us. And
Yeah.
we would, even women, actually it was women. We get burned every time.
Mm-hmm.
Not even realize it until the asset's in the car. He's like, was that your guys in the hotel? You know what I mean? And I'd be like, how did you know that? And they'd be like, oh, he's wearing the thing on the wrong side, or he's doing this, or he's doing that. I think it's impossible for a Westerner to really to get it down perfectly. At first glance, it's great, but
Yeah.
to actually do it, no way. And we've had assets get killed because of it. I mean, it's a tough place to blend.
Yeah. I would say almost all of the places we went, Somalia, my mask probably there. And, you got gloves that go up to your armpits to make you a black guy, but it only works because, they're high on cot and I'm doing it at night, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. For CMOE, which is what, your initial question getting pulled out of NSA, it was because I ran a course for the 4 or 5 E9s at Dam Neck. It was like a 2-week course. They came up and I kind of put them through it and they realized, wow, like, you know what you're talking about and you've actually done this stuff. Why don't you come work for us? And I was like, okay. So, did the screening for Dam Neck, the interviews and the psych tests. And then I actually said, hey, probably a good idea to go through Green Team. They're like, nope. And these E9s at the time were like legends. And so what they said went. There's no arguing with them, And so once I got there and got into Black Squadron, my job really didn't have anything to do with Green Team, but it's nice to check that box because it's selection. And if you're a SEAL, you want to be a selected guy. But I put in like 5 different chits and they were turned down every time. So there's a point when you just go, okay. And
Why?
You're not here for that.
Gotcha.
You're not here for that. You're not here for that. You're here for CMOE. I was like, roger that. But CMOE is clandestine methods of entry. So I built the program there, which is basically lock and alarms, getting in, leaving 0 attribution, United States government, 0 forensics. And so Jeff and I had like a $10 million budget, which is nothing compared to what guys have now. But at the time, we're like, holy shit, just the 2 of us. And that was to build the capability. So we went to the 2-2 SAS's capability, went to SRR while we were in England. They had a great small CMOE capability, very experienced, get the IRA back in the day. Went to FBI, TOS, theirs is a $100 million CMOE program, right? Went to PAG, which is the agencies. That's another $100 million fucking, entry program. And we're like, well, we got to build something in the middle. So we're just a 2-man shop. And
Yeah.
we got educated at the highest levels and were able to get, ultimately the goal for anything is, you want the squadron to be able to own the target. So our main job was to provide reliable, repeatable means of reentry. So that means make a key. So that's
cool, man.
That's all we did is roam around the planet, breaking into shit. And most of the time, there's only two reasons I'm going to be in your house, in your car, or on your boat. And that is either tactical or technical. And you probably rather it be technical than tactical. Because if I'm there, that means 22 guys are going to show up after me and fuck you up for the rest of your life or make you disappear at sea. Mm-hmm. If it's technical, well, you get to live a little longer. And we're just going to listen to you, watch you, and see where you go, Mm-hmm. But it was definitely, you couldn't ask for a better job. Singleton world,
Like I said, I wasn't as deep in as you were, but that was it's my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know. I can't even really describe why. It's just, I don't know. It's just cool to be on your own doing that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's it. I
would have loved to have done TFO.
Yeah. I did classes for them. I'd get pulled up there.
Really?
Yeah. I got to help out with their selection, and they've got a great history. That's the closest selection to OSS selection that there is in history to this day.
Yeah.
Super cool. But I would help them out in Nevada. Fucking phenomenal course. There was aspects of that I put into ours because I was able to go see it, and these guys are onto something.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
I did not know that you were the one that pretty much built that entire program, at least at the beginning of time,
Beginning of time.
The beginning of its time.
Yeah. Things like
very cool.
20 plus years ago at this point. So yeah, it's old now. All old news. I can't even imagine what they're doing these days.
I'll bet it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I bet it is.
But you want to take a quick break?
Sure.
I'm always listening to something. On the road, working out, walking around the house, traveling, whatever it is. And what I like about Amazon Music is it puts music, podcasts, and audiobooks all in one app. So now with Amazon Music Unlimited, you're not just getting music and podcasts. Your subscription also includes access to audiobooks, which makes it easy to keep something good going no matter what you're doing. I've been listening to Project Hail Mary, and that's the kind of audiobook that really works in this format. Hearing the story in the narrator's voice pulls you in differently. You get the pacing, the tension, the personality of the characters, and it makes it easy to stay locked in whether you're driving, training, or knocking things out around the house. With Amazon Music, you get music, podcasts, and audiobooks all in one app. Try it today. The internet wasn't built with your privacy in mind, but Glacier was. Open the app, tap connect, done. You're protected. Remember, privacy isn't paranoia, it's protection. Take your privacy back. Download Glacier today. All right, Clint, we're back from the break. I think we covered a lot of the Singleton stuff and everything you're doing, or is there more to go into?
I think that's plenty, right? People get the idea. It's really about, hey, you're taking seasoned operators, turn them into operatives and going and getting shit done outside the theaters of war, and, creative way of taking out bad guys. It's really super cool stuff. And yeah.
So what's some of the stuff that you carried back then or carried now? Let's do a quick everyday carry pocket dump.
Back then, it's going to sound weird. I always had a couple of tracking devices. I had my lock equipment, smart jammers for alarm systems and stuff like that. Recce stuff, urban recce, like cameras and hide materials and video. And notice the first thing I mentioned is like, an MP7 and a, some kind of whatever pistol. But, your tools, as back then, or for that kind of stuff is, it's it's commercial level stuff that you can explain away, you know? And so it's not about guns and all that. It's about having a great storyline. If you ever get pulled over and have something, you got to have a story, you know, that matches what you have on you. And then that story also has to match the environment that you happen to get rolled up in. That's all you're thinking about the whole time, right? Because the layers of your cover come off as you get closer and closer to a target, to the point where if I'm on my knee making a key to a lock, I really can't explain that away. So that's why time on target is so important. You want it as minimal as possible so that you can get your layers back on, because the further you get away from that target, the better. You know, disguises, you know, obviously those masks come in handy. One of them was actually on display at the International Spy Museum in DC. And then I guess some agency attorneys went through there after it had been on display for like 4 or 5 years. You know, the agency purposely unclassified disguise stuff so that someone can, like, you can throw it in the trash. Because before then, if you threw it in the trash, oh, you threw away classified material? So they unclassify all this crap. You know, and what am I going to do with a mask that's built to my face, you know? So I just donated it. And the former deputy of Black Squadron was actually the director of the Spy Museum when I donated it. So he was good with it. I was like, oh, okay, well, if he's good with it, then... But they came through and took it, you know, and stuck it in their new museum at headquarters, I guess. Supposedly, I don't know. Or they threw it in the trash. Who knows? You know. But it's actually there's a funny story to this whole disguise thing. Like, at the time, PVH, you know, or the CO of SEAL Team 6 pulled Jeff and I in. He's like, "You guys are my disguise guys?" I'm like, I wouldn't call us disguise guys. We just wear them from time to time in case there's a nanny cam, you know? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Here's the deal. Can you disguise a troop of guys? Like, you know, with masks and stuff? And he's like, well, whatever. I'm like, well, no, probably not the mask, because it takes 6 months to build those things, you know, or whatever it is. I said, we could probably use, you know, some LA guys. And he's like, yeah, okay, figure it out. I want you to take 22 guys and get them disguised. I'm like, as what? You're like, I don't know, Afghanis or something. And we're like, okay. So I call up, the first guy I called was the Stu Siegel. Okay, Stu Siegel Productions. We used him in the AFO course, and he is a producer that was in LA. He decided to open up his own production studios in San Diego. And he had sets, and he had an Afghan village that looked real realistic, and we can run scenarios there with actors and everything and really get guys squared away on blending in or building rapport, right? For some of the things that require communication. And so I call him up, and he's famous for all the 80s cheesy TV shows. So Pensacola, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Remember Renegade?
Yeah.
Hunter, Silk Stocking Murders, right? He produced all those in San Diego. His claim to fame, though, was Jeremy the Hedgehog. He started in porn. So Stu was a porn producer and made Jeremy the is that his name? Jeremy the Hedgehog famous? You know, the ugly little guy with the really
I know who you're
big.
talking about.
Yeah. Got a lot of meat on that guy kind of guy, but never seen it though. And so then he switched out of porn and started all those TV shows, has his own set and stuff. And then at the same time, I was like, well, who can do like really good? The Yeager brothers. Now the Yeager brothers got their fame early on in the special effects world with Freddy Krueger. And they got all kinds of awards and stuff, I guess, back in the day. And they became like the top special effects place in LA. And so they could make really cool masks, super detailed, but they're faster. So I was just like, okay, I can leverage all my resources and figure out who can knock this out the quickest. And Stu, of course, like, I got you. We can knock this out. So if you know Stu, he's like a big barrel-chested, bearded. He should be a team guy, but he's a Hollywood producer. And so we fly these guys out there to the Afghan village, dress them all up, You know, they put prosthetic noses and bushy eyebrows and, you know, and beards and this and that and all these tanning ointments and got them looking all, you know, gave them AK-47s and then had them run around in this village, and we filmed it because the special instruction was, hey, film it with cell phones, film it with handy cams, film it with all kinds of just average crap, right? Like average technology. And while you're at it, go ahead and use some high-end security cameras as well. And we'll just see how these guys look. Do it at day, do it at night. Kind of did it the whole thing. And, you know, we're like, what is this for, you know? And so we come back and kind of present it to the CO, and he looks at it, and he's like, oh, okay. It was really, all right, thanks. And that was it. We're like, well, what the? Because we jumped through our ass to make this happen. So did it was a troop out of Silver Squadron. And so we're just like, what the fuck was that for? Well, fast forward, turns out one of the courses of action for the bin Laden raid was to let everyone do it in disguise and then let Pakistan take credit for it. And so this was like to see how they looked if they happened to get captured on cell phone or cameras or whatever it is. And I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. That's my big claim to fame in the bin Laden operation. Controversial bin Laden operation.
Boy, how that would have changed the latest drama, huh?
Yeah. What is it right now?
With the latest, you know what I mean?
I kind of lost track, honestly. Like,
I don't know. Keep track either.
Who's winning? Is there
know.
anybody winning?
Winning.
Is this the who shot bin Laden thing?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Is that the current?
I don't know.
What were you talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's been kind of like the ongoing thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, had that have happened, how what a change of
well, no one can say anything. And I think maybe, you know, that's why the course of action just was never looked at seriously. Like, all right, these guys aren't going to keep that secret. I swear to God, it was me. I'm the one with the big nose.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was weird. But, you know, yeah. Yep.
So why did you leave?
Well, boy, that's an interesting question that you just threw out there. Well, I was rolling up on my 20 to begin with. And so let's see. That was 2000. So, you know the deal with retirement. You can put your retirement paperwork out 24 months out, 2 years out. As soon as you do that, it's supposed to kind of take you off the bench, and you can take that last 2 years and kind of just do whatever you want and concentrate on your new future. At that command, it doesn't do that. You know, I put my paperwork in, but kept working and still got pulled into stuff here and there. And plus you're addicted, so you don't really say no to anything anyway. You want to be part of anything. And then, but the way out ended up actually having, you know, some drama attached to it, unfortunately. And it actually hinges on what we just joked about. So, basically I'm sitting at home one morning and I get a call from my ops chief who I had gone through buds with. And he's like, Clint, don't come in, man. They've got your picture at all the checkpoints. I'm like, are you fucking with me right now? No, I am serious as a heart attack. They have your headshot at all the checkpoints. And I was like, okay. He's like, I'll call you back once I have more information.
What checkpoints?
To get on base, to get to the command.
Okay.
Right. So, and I'm like, still thinking, maybe he's fucking with me. Like, why would they put a picture of me?
Oh, you mean there's a picture posted?
A picture posted?
I thought you meant pictures of you going through the checkpoints.
No.
Like, what?
No, yeah. Picture
like
of
this
me.
guy, like if you see this guy, bring him in type
right.
shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something. And I was like, all right. So that was kind of like obviously nerve-wracking. And I'm like, so I'm sitting at home.
Now all this shit really comes in handy.
What's that?
now all these masks really come in handy.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like, what the fuck could this be? You know, like there's nothing. Like I've lived a pretty clean career and, you know, I'm sitting there going, have I done something wrong? Did I say something wrong? Did I, you know? And anyway, a day turns into days. and I'm starting to call people and nobody knows anything. And as you know, or I always kind of compare it like to that Eddie Gallagher moment, like knowing what it's like to have no control over your future, right? And I got a fraction of what he got, but I had that feeling like, oh, what does this mean? You start thinking it's the 800-pound gorilla sitting on your chest right now. It's the United States government. It's this, it's that. And your mind just starts taking off in all different directions. And, I'm just sitting at home and didn't know what was going on. Nobody gave me any word. And then I think about a week went by. And then finally, my ops chief, same guy, he calls me up and he's like, hey, I hope you're doing okay. It's still real blurry around here. I have no idea what's going on. So just hang tight. And I'm like, I've been hanging tight. Like, what the fuck is going on? And he was like, I'm sorry, I just don't have an answer for you. And I was like, what the fuck? And then a couple more days goes by. He calls. He's like, hey, meet me at the, I think it was Harris Teeter grocery store. He's like, meet me in the parking lot. I was like, okay. And so it's after work for him. So once meet him over there in the evening. It's pouring rain. He's like, hey, do you have your access badges and all your stuff? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I've been told to take it. I'm like, holy fuck. Like you're handing over, all your NSW. I got a ton of them on there too, because they give me access to places in DC and this and that. And I hand it over to him and he's like, sorry, dude. He goes, I still have no idea. I was just told to come get this from you. He's like, just hang tight. We'll figure it out. I'm like, great. So now I go home. When that happened, now I start to branch out and call other folks. And so the first person jumped in my mind was one of my buddies I think he was at Team 8. And Team 8 was the one where they handed over a CIA source or whatever it was. Remember this? Team 8 guys hand him over. He's alive. And then when the agency got a hold of him, he magically died. Do you remember this?
I don't.
And there was a bunch of team guys at 8 or wherever that were getting like court-martialed, and it was some crazy drama. And I talked to one of them, and they were like, call Louis free. Because, he ended up walking into the courtroom. The judge knew who he was. Everybody knew who he was. Louis basically looked at the judge, said, this is like a kangaroo court. This is ridiculous. Let these guys go. They didn't do anything wrong, and you know it. And so the military judge respected and knew who Louis was, to the point where he basically let those guys go because it was a total sham deal or whatever the drama. I don't remember the details anymore, but so they're like, just call him, I remember there was a trip I took to Yemen, in one of the houses, there was a kid named Justin Free. And I was like, oh, I've met Louis' son. He's an officer, team guy. So I hit him up and said, hey, I've been told to probably hit your dad up. What do you think? He's like, yeah, call him. Get him on your side now and get it over with. That way you're good. And I was like, okay. And if you don't know who Louis Free is, he's a former federal judge, former director of the FBI, and he owns probably one of the most reputable law firms in the country. His law firm took down Sandusky, right? All this, what was that, like sexual stuff at one of the universities. He took down the BP oil spill in the Gulf, when that thing was dumping, millions of barrels of oil per day. But great American. And he's a kind of an American icon, actually. He's kind of checked all the big boxes in the legal world. And so I called him up and said, hey, I have no idea what's going on, but, I had all my badges pulled. I've been basically sitting at home for a couple of weeks. And, here's this guy I don't even know. And he's like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Like, if you can't think of anything that you've done that's that wrong, then it can't be that bad. And either way, I'll take care of it, And it was like, whoa. And it was the first time in that couple of weeks, feel like, all right, now I got somebody on my side. And it's not just somebody, he's got horsepower. And in fact, on that first phone call, he's like, do you want me to call 60 Minutes? We can light this up in a heartbeat, man. I was like, no, not yet. I said, if it comes to something like that, sure. And this is a long story, but to shorten it, you fast forward, they do this full investigation that I don't know what it is. I just know there's an investigation going on. They're not really talking to me. I kept Louis up to speed, but I never told anybody that I had him in my court, and had him on standby to just start, destroying people if it was necessary. And then one day I get called in. I had to go to the visitor center. They took me to the MWR building, which is like, you couldn't work for, somebody who's been at the command for whatever, at that point, 7 years, something like that. It's like, dude, you're treating me like, like a maintenance guy coming to fix something. Right. And, they pulled me into the MWR, and, a SEAL warrant who was in charge of the investigation or whatever sits down in front of me, pulls out this big binder, and I'm looking at the binder. I kind of see like it's like print offs from my website. Okay. And so he's flipping through it, and he's like, do you have a company called Escape the Wolf? I'm like, yeah. Are you actively making any money right now? I'm like, no. Like, do you have some product that you're offering? Yep. Have you, is there a conflict of interest with this product? I haven't sold any product. There's nothing. So he's got this, he's got all these questions that have to do with my retirement company. And then he's like, so Matt Bissonette. And then I'm looking at like, yeah. He's like, are you aware that there's a book that came out? I was like, I don't think so. No. He's like, so are you friends with Matt? I was like, we're acquaintances. I think I went over to he had a company called Element 5 or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, I was like, yeah, I've talked to him a couple times. That's about it. He's like, oh, like staring at this guy. And he's like, well, a lot of what you've got going on right now, looks and smells kind of like what he did. I'm like, well, what did he do? He's like, well, he had wrote a book, and he had sold rights, to a publisher, and collected that money while he was on active duty here at this command. So what outside income are you collecting while you're here at this command? And I'm like, none. And he's like, well, you've got a lot of infrastructure set up online, and that's part of the reason why you're sitting here. And, some people or whatever has some issues with all this. And I was like, are you aware that I put in my retirement paperwork already? He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, so I've already put in for retirement.
Hell of an investigation you got going on here.
And then he's like, okay. And I said, are you aware that I also filled out a chit respectfully requesting to start my retirement company called Escape the Wolf?
You gotta be shitting me.
And I have 5 signatures of my entire chain of command, and all the paperwork is sitting in the JAG's office. And he's like, do you have copies of this? I'm like, yeah, at home. You better believe it. He's like, oh. So this is like 2 or 3 months later. Okay. And I had stressed out. I was down to like 160 pounds, thinking I didn't know what to think. And it's them targeting, there's about 20 of us that they targeted, to figure out who had outside sources of income, because they were comparing it to the likes of what Matt did with his book, and they didn't have control of Matt. The CO at the time was putting pressure on the DOJ. DOJ then was coming after Matt, but it was a dotted line. It wasn't enough. So when the CO's job was threatened by the Joint Chief of Staff that, hey, why do you have your guys getting out writing books about covert operations? That same CO saw his career pass in front of him. His grandfather was an admiral. His dad was an admiral. And now I think he saw it as like, oh, well, now I'm not going to make admiral because of this person's book. Well, so I'm going to have to take it out on his own people. And I just happened to get wrapped up into that 20 guys, and we all got Trident boarded and treated like criminals.
They still did it? They still Trident boarded you?
In order to close any case in Naval Special Warfare, it's the Trident board that closes the case. So keeping your Trident, but we got to finish the board. So in the board is when the true colors came out, and I'm sitting across from a master chief
You should board yourself for being a fucking dumbass.
Right. I mean, it was all kangaroo court, knee-jerk reaction to try and burn a bunch of guys that they had control over because some other guy, did something they didn't like. That's, and so
you did the proper channels.
I did.
Board?
The other 19 didn't fare so well, but they still were like, hey, yeah, we got to board you to close this thing out. And so I sat down from a master chief who had an investigation on him that was ongoing, right? And I knew about it. I don't even know if he knew he had an investigation going on him. And he's like, so, Matt Bissonette. I'm like, uh-huh. It's like, why didn't you disclose that you bought your house from him when you moved to Virginia Beach?
What the hell, dude?
And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I bought my house, but Matt's out of town. I'm out of town. My wife and his wife basically made the deal. Like, I said, I knew I was buying a house from a team guy, but I didn't, that's it. Like, what do you mean? And here's what's interesting that I knew is the same master chief had sold that same house to Matt when Matt moved to Virginia Beach. And so I was like, didn't you own this house at one time? And he was like, that's not the point. I was like, okay. And then it was over. They did their little kangaroo court. Okay, you get to keep your Trident. I was like, well, good, because I'm like retiring next month. Thank God. But I mean, that was my exit out, out of the Navy. It was fucking horrible and stressful and immature.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Some of the other guys, man, they were sweeping the quarterdeck for like a year. They got their Tridents pulled, sweeping the quarterdeck, told that after that year of punishment, we'll give you your bird back. Some of them, once the year went by, they didn't get their bird back. Just let them, see ya. It's crazy. These were seasoned.
Dude, it doesn't surprise me.
Seasoned,
None of this shit
experienced
surprises
operators.
me. They
These were like troop chief level guys.
eat you up and spit you out like you're a piece of shit. I see it time and time and time and time again.
Yeah.
In here.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
Every unit.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Well, they say, it's a fence line of sharks and eventually you get bit. So, got bit. It's kind of like they say, well, you can't make chief until you get in trouble. It's like, well, it kind of holds true a little bit.
Yeah, the hypocrisy is just like nothing I've ever seen.
It had left a bad taste in my mouth for a really long time. And then eventually you're just like, well, whatever, man. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And I was glad I was the only one that filled out the right paperwork. Because us, Naval Special, nobody fills out paperwork in NSW. And the only reason I filled out that paperwork is because my deputy in Black Squadron, who was an Army guy, was like, yeah, you should probably fill out a chit and just cover your ass just in case. I was like, oh.
Good call on that.
Yeah, an Army guy, because they're all about the admin stuff,
Wow.
But yeah, I listened to him and it paid off. Yeah. Fun, right?
So we covered the escape the wolf stuff.
Yeah, so.
Let's talk about Ibogaine.
Oh boy, Ibogaine.
How'd that go for you?
I think I benefited far more than I know. I feel like I went into it pretty ready compared to a lot of guys. I feel like a lot of guys, I don't know about you, but they sign up, they go down, and they really hadn't done a lot of prep work, So I'd been through therapist after therapist after therapist, and I finally found Scott, out of Florida. And this guy is basically like part therapist, part Yoda, part poet, and has this very, he just has an ability about him. You can vomit all over his desk and he will take all of that and turn it into just gold bars of wisdom where you're sitting there going, yeah, exactly. You know, if you tell like how you feel or what you're thinking, I don't know how many times with this guy I would say, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm feeling. You know, 2 years straight of working with him and prior to Ibogaine, and was able to just uncover the why to a lot of my own personal issues, you know?
Is this the childhood stuff that we're coming back to?
Yeah.
I thought this was coming after Ibogaine. I'm sorry.
No, it was all during that Ibogaine was like the grand finale for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so he made me dig and, you know, and he, there's one exercise he had me do that was so powerful that it kind of unlocked a lot of compartmentalized stuff from childhood. And, he said, you know, before I moved to Saudi, I was in Dallas and, I had this memory of standing in the bathroom doorway as like a 4 or 5-year-old, leaning against the frame of the door. My mom's sitting on the toilet, right? She's got a cigarette hanging in her mouth, and she's like, Clinty, you know your dad? Uh-huh. Yeah, you know he's not your real dad, right? And I'm just like, and then she just kind of left it at that. You know, and in retrospect and through therapy, you learn like a boy's identity is through his father. You know, trust is through the mom, and, you know, a whole lot of other things that carried a lot of weight in that moment. And then she stacked a whole bunch of other stuff on over time, right? Things that I remembered, you know, when I was learning to walk and talk, she was teaching me how to lie, cheat, and steal all at the same time. I remember us going to grocery stores and she would always stage me in the toy section, be like, stay here. I'm going to go get our stuff. And, you know, I'd stand there and look at all the toys or whatever. And then when she filled up her basket, she'd roll by and be like, okay, pick something out that you want. Okay, I'll take, you know, whatever, G.I. Joe. Grab a G.I. Joe thing, and then we just walk right out the door. We never went to the cash registers. Almost every single time we go grocery shopping. Never paid for anything. And I just thought that was normal. You know, I was like, oh, maybe I don't even know if at that age it crosses your mind that you didn't pay for anything like everyone else, you know, and that the groceries in the grocery basket aren't like all bagged separately, you know, it's all just in there. And, you know, and I didn't know any of this stuff. And, you know, and then anytime she was lying in front of me, I always remember her looking at me and telling me in German, don't say anything. And I always look at her like, what do you mean? You know, as a kid. So she knew she's bold-faced lying to somebody and then looked down at me and, you know, like Zegeist or whatever it was she said that meant, you know, don't say anything in German. And so I just watched her for a lot of the childhood do all her things, lie, cheat, and steal like crazy. And, but I didn't know any of that until Scott was like, hey, here's an exercise. You're going to figure out what apartment you lived in Dallas and go find it. And so I look up my elementary school on Google Earth, and then I kind of knew that I knew that, okay, that was the school. And I could remember fragments. I remembered what that swimming pool at that apartment complex looked like. And so I was able to go, okay, that's the complex. So now it's time to go do this experience. And he told me, he's like, all right, I want you to drive there, you know, anchor yourself to the pool and then walk the path to the apartment you lived in when you were that little boy. I was like, all right. And so get there, pull in. It is a shithole, like shithole Dallas apartment complex. And I even felt kind of, I was like, oh, I'm glad I'm packing heat, you know, and go to the pool, get on that path, make my way. And I remember it was the bottom floor apartment. They were 2-story. And I'm standing right there. And it was like this overarching feeling of insecurity came over me standing there staring at that damn door. And he's like, all right, now you're just going to imagine, close your eyes, whatever you need. Now you're going to walk through that door. I want you to picture it and describe it to me. And I'm like, okay. Living room is to the left. Living room is to the right. Kitchen is to the left. You go through the dining or the living room, and off to the left down there is a set of stairs. A set of stairs go up to your bedroom. Okay, take those stairs. You go up, and then first door to the right was my bedroom. You open up the door, look in. He's like, okay, so, what do you see? And I see myself. It's like 4 or 5 year old Clint. What are you doing? I'm on my stomach. I'm by myself. And it was interesting. You walk into the room, and for me, visualizing, I could feel the feelings of that kid. It was fear, loneliness, sadness, depression. It's fucking crazy. And he's like, okay, walk over and then just lean down, put your hand on his back. What is he doing? He's, doing Superman coloring book or whatever. And, he's like, okay, let little Clint know that you're there, and, and let him know I'm there. And, and then he turns and looks up, and man, it was like so powerful. I lost my shit, like right there, like even talking about it right now. And it was all about like, hey, you're gonna, get little Clint, get him to stand up. You're down at eye level with him, give him a big hug and hold on to him. And, I just remember you're hugging this little version of yourself at that age. And, you could feel all the feelings during that moment, even right now, like replaying it. And,
Wow.
So you hug this little kid and you tell him, hey, everything's going to be okay. Do you want to get out of here? And the little kid's like, yeah. Little Clint's like, let's get out of here. You hold his hand, walk him down the stairs, back through that living room. At this point, you meet yourself standing outside. Now you got your little version of yourself with you, and beeline it to the car, literally opened up the passenger door and visualized putting him in there, closing the door, going around, getting in the driver's seat and driving away and leaving that place, in the rearview mirror. And then, I'll never forget, I went to this coffee shop that was nearby that I'd already kind of pre-located. He had me kind of said, hey, when you get done, find a safe place and give me a call. And so then I get there, get on the phone with Scott, and fucking lost my shit. And it just didn't unpack it. It decompartmentalized a big portion of the bad things during childhood. Not just up to that moment in that apartment, but it allowed all that compartmentalization to start just busting open, even post apartment, like moving to Saudi and things in Saudi, and all of
unraveling.
It unraveled everything. And then that was just the beginning, and in that the 2 years with him, he was able to, you get to like just whatever, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, I got kind of, like we all do with any therapist, you get kind of frustrated with some of them, like, okay, tell me what's going on. Like, fix me, and you got to find the right one. I'll tell you, Scott's the one I feel like for a lot of us. And so I got to kind of a frustration point when I was like, all right, come on, what the fuck? What's going on with all this? And he was able to take that red thread and sew it from when I was 5 all the way to that moment in time. And And I sat there and listened to him, and I was just blown away. Because he took every single, like, even these fragmented things I would say in our discussions, he had made note of it, things you don't think are anything important, And he had made note of all these things over 2 years and was able to just tie it all together. All the abandonment, all the trust issues, all the control issues. I mean, you name it. I had deep-seated issues that, were, I think in some cases, like the most deep-seated and the worst he'd ever kind of dealt with or tried to dig up out of somebody, So your sign or symptom at the surface could be drugs, could be alcohol, could be women, but that's just a sign or symptom of something much, much larger. And what in the therapist world we'll call your 10%, right? That's just the 10. When somebody cries over spilt milk, it's just 10%. It's not the spilt milk. It's not the drug addiction. It's not the alcohol. It's not the womanizing. It's the 10% those are just signs and symptoms. When you actually take time and find the right therapist, now you can excavate down into your core, into your soul, and find the 90. And that should be everybody's goal, is go, okay, I got to go find my 90. Because that 90% is the why you have signs and symptoms. And when you never go figure out your why, well, then you can't really solve the problem. And so for me, having those 2 years and getting to the why, when you show up to something like Ibogaine, where they tell you, hey, intention is everything, right? Your intention's going in, your intention's coming out. You got to make sure those intentions, are real and anchored ideally to your why. So I showed up knowing exactly, like, okay, I got these abandonment issues from my mother, trust issues from her. And that led to trust issues and abandonment issues with women, which then, the control issues, it's trust. I mean, it's all connected. But if you don't know that it was all connected or unravel all of that crap from your past, well, then you can't really solve the problem. You can go to Ibogaine and go face your demons, if you will, but still, if you don't know the why, then you may not benefit as much from it. So anytime I'm talking to people now, I'm like, dude, figure out the why first so that you can show up with the intentions that are connected to it, right? So if your intention going under the mask, I don't know if you were doing it, but I was like saying them to myself, okay, trust, abandonment, all the, hey, thrown out with the old, in with the new, right? Even when you do the fire ceremony, you're burning the old so that you can bring in the new. And so mine were all trust, abandonment issued intentions and getting rid of them so that you can now finally kind of live free of all of it and live a normal, productive life and get rid of all the bad habits, and go find a guy like that or gal who gets you, who connects with you, who sees you, and then knows how to interpolate it. I used to go to these marriage therapists. I'm like, you go to a marriage counselor who's never been divorced, it's like they're not the one. If you're going to be a marriage counselor, you probably should have been divorced a couple of times and seen both sides of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, and now you can talk to it. And I think, counseling across the board should be handled that way. If you're dealing with addicts, okay, well, hopefully you were an addict, because that's where you benefit the most.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you piece together? What were the missing components?
I mean, for me, knowing the abandonment piece, the trust, and how it was all anchored to my mom, like I had no idea, honestly, Plus the Ibogaine, what it did is it allowed my conscious to come back to the surface, probably the first time on the post Ibogaine where it was nothing but every bad feeling for about 40 or 45 days straight, grief, shame, guilt, There wasn't one good feeling for about 40 plus days. Every day I opened my eye knowing that this is going to suck. You know, I'd wake up and go, oh God, there it is. And I'd just feel it. In the random crying, you know, be driving down the road, start crying, could be at the grocery store, start crying. I mean, it's just like it consumes you, or consumed me for, 40 plus days. And then there was the one morning where you finally wake up, you open your eye, you're kind of like, oh, maybe I'm back to neutral, right? Everything's not as bad. You kind of feel normal one more time again, but man, but ultimately, yeah, it brought my conscience back, kind of reset my moral compass probably, and made feelings, made me feel again. Pretty interesting and powerful, right? I'd also say, with some of this psychedelic stuff, like I also noticed too, and I'm sure you've seen it, I think they need to be careful with a lot of it, I think it's, calling it medicine and capitalism is starting to get its hands on it. And I feel like when that happens, you better be careful, because before you know it, it'll be readily available and it won't cost so much, and you won't need a nonprofit, or you won't need this, you won't need that. And I think they need to be careful how they.
Yeah. I don't know what to think anymore. Well, me and you, I mean, that's the first time I met you randomly. We're at the hotel getting ready to go down. You went to a different house, and I don't know what I think about it anymore.
This was your second time, right? Mm-hmm. So did you have all the bad feelings like I did?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it still creeps in there if you let it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Like, it's weird. I can almost, imagine the mask is off, and right now I could do almost like 1,000-meter stare. And good doesn't creep in. It's like a bad feeling that starts to come over me. Is that what you if you just let silence hang out a little too long and think about it?
Do you believe in God?
I do. Yeah. I didn't always, but even in the Ibogaine, I asked, you can get to about whatever they tell you, around 7 or 8 hours, you can start asking Ibogaine questions. And so I remember saying, hey, show me God. And like a film strip coming down from the top of my mask in there, in cursive white writing, it said, show me God. Exactly what I was thinking. And then it kind of kept going. It was like a movie reel almost, right? And then the very next thing that started to come down was this black medallion. It's looked like it was probably this big when you're under the mask, right? And it had cutouts in it. And as you know, you try to focus on anything in there, it goes blurry on you, right? And so I was using my peripherals trying to make out what the cutouts had. But the kind of the eerie part of the whole thing was it was backlit by a raging fire. So the only reason I could see the cutouts on this medallion or coin was because it was backlit by this fire that was burning. And it I tried to keep it there, but it just kept on moving down, and disappeared out of the bottom of my mask. It was really odd. You?
What about me?
Would you ask, do I believe in God?
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
something on the second run that...
There was, I mean, are you a Christian? When I say God, I mean,
Yeah.
do you believe in Christ?
Yes.
I don't know, because I'm not really,
Don't know about the Christ part?
oh no,
Oh.
I'm 100% sure about
Oh, got
that.
it. The Ibogaine part.
Yeah. There's been a lot of good that's come from it. I am not ready to share everything that I've been through yet and that I'm continue to go through,
Yeah.
but I will say I think there's a possibility that that is a realm that we as humanity should not have access to.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of deception can happen in that. I think we have a veil over us. I mean, I'm very, I feel very in tune with the spiritual realm right now. All the shit that's going on around us that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, we can't see frequencies. We can't see certain lights. We can't see really anything. We only have, 5 senses. But doing that kind of proves that there's a lot more going on. And I think there's a possibility that God put that veil over us because we are not ready for that.
I could see that. Yeah. Especially as more and more people get into this whole DMT on drip, hanging out in different realms for hours at a time. I'm sure you've had people on here, you've heard about that.
Oh yeah, I've
I
been
find
invited
that
to do it.
Nope. I'm good.
They're talking about talking to entities.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seems like something that I don't really want to mess around with.
No.
And
yeah, I don't think. Yeah.
I've been a huge proponent of it, and sometimes I feel like maybe that was a mistake, and maybe I've led a lot of people in the wrong direction. But at the same time, I'm not sure, and I'm not really 100% ready to go there yet because I'm still trying to figure out what it all meant and what it does mean. And but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think people just need to be neutral on it. Don't get onto.
A lot of people get into that, and then that becomes their god.
Well, it becomes their new addiction.
It's talking to the medicine.
Yeah.
I
think just we got to be careful with some of the language, but the whole like God made it, it's natural to the earth, and I'm like, well, so are rattlesnakes and crude oil. I'm not drinking it every morning with my breakfast.
Yeah.
You just gotta. I think there's a lot of good that it's done and can do, and I think they just need to keep it from getting capitalized upon because I think that's where once starts going to market in any other way than how it is right now, I feel like that's when things go south. Just maintain the control over it and do it right,
Yeah.
But yeah. Where's my gummy bears? Since you gave me these, start here. So I appreciate you giving me these though, really, because I want to give you something in return if you're okay with that.
Oh, love that.
Okay. So I'm going to get up for a second. You asked me about EDC, but I got to take a moment here and, you know, counter your gummy bears with at least a Shadow Systems. Okay. All the components built, made in Texas. Okay. It's a veteran owned company. He's a West Point guy. Don't hold it against him. Trevor Rowe, West Point, combat vet. This is the MR920, and it's kind of their flagship compact. It's already set up, optics ready, obviously. That's number one. That's for you. Okay. Shadow, obviously, veteran-owned Texas company that, yeah, tell me how that feels.
Right? That's nice.
Yeah. That one's been around. It's actually being carried by a whole bunch of law enforcement agencies. And then you are getting the first ever. This thing's the heat, dude. This is the new Shadow Systems U526. This thing is ready. This is serial number 0005.
Dude.
And they did not compromise on this thing. This thing dry is only 6.2 pounds. Didn't compromise on the barrel. It's twisted. It's chrome lined. Beautiful. It's got user adjusted safety switch. You can put it at either 60 degrees or you can put it at 30 or 90.
Right on.
There's a lot of other perks to this. It's not your typical, 5.56 rifle. And then we put they put the EOTech 2-dot. Have you shot through the 2-dot yet?
No.
So it has 2 dots inside. The top dot is 50 to 200. And then the bottom dot is 200 out.
No shit.
So all you do is change the focus of a top dot or bottom dot, and obviously a magnifier there for you. So,
thank you.
yeah, man. And I was hoping I was the first to, yeah. See that? Is it? I don't know if it's on.
Holy shit.
So that's the other piece. I forgot. It's a two-stage, 3-pound trigger on that thing. So you distinct first stage, and then the second. 3 pounds on that. The barrel, the stock.
Dude, this is nice.
Yeah, I hope you like it.
I love it.
I was hoping I was the first to counter your gummy bears with a weapon.
You are.
Good. That's all that matters.
And well, I got something for you too.
Oh, yeah. We're at that point in our relationship.
We are. Dude, this is damn. Thank you.
Yeah. I hope you get out back and tell me how it does. I think you'll dig it, dude.
Maybe we can do that real quick before you leave. But
Yeah.
I know we're pressed for time here, so I'll just get right to it. So, not going to say I raise your gift.
It's funny how these things are
I
all.
thought we were going into MP7 territory.
Oh shit! Damn.
I thought we were going into MP7 territory when you did the EDC, but you actually made fun of it. So I was like, oh shit. But
Look at this thing.
yeah, so this is Sig Sauer Rattler 300 Blackout. I got a buddy over at Sig. His name's Jason, and everybody knows him now. But yeah, I was looking for a new bedside gun, and I wanted 300 Blackout because the penetration power.
Yeah,
the
and it's
5.56 just flies through everything, as you had mentioned, especially with green tip.
Yeah.
And which we found out too. Kind of funny that you found out 2 years before we did.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that board
right
just
through.
didn't travel. But yeah, so Sig Rattler 300 Blackout SBR with the new Sig optics, got a Sig flashlight on it, it's got a Sig suppressor on it, folding buttstock,
That thing's the heat.
super quiet.
That's pretty.
But yeah, and SIG's an awesome company.
Yeah.
So, quick story about SIG, if you don't mind. We there's a sheriff's department that the county over from here, and I got a friend that works there. Very poor county, not a big budget, huge meth problem, and he told me the shit that they're running over there,
Yeah.
and it is like 25-year-old ARs, mixed matched stuff, unreliable, jamming all the time. And like I said, he's a good friend of mine. And I was like, this is crazy, man, that you guys have to rely on this shit.
Yeah.
Especially in that county with what you're dealing with. And so I was like, how many, he runs a SWAT team now. And I was like, how many guys are over there? And he said about 30. So I wanted to buy him 30 rifles that are good to go. And I called Jason up at SIG and I said, hey, you guys have any old stock laying around that I can just buy at cost and give to these guys? And he said, well, give me a couple days. And it's like, look, I'm not asking for you to give them, or I'll pay for them. It'd just be cool if you could give them to me at cost. So he gets back to me and he says, hey, yeah, we got the perfect. We're going to give them these. I think they're it's a 5.56 SBR. He goes, we're also going to outfit them with optics. We're also going to outfit them with flashlights, and we're also going to outfit them with suppressors. And I don't need you to pay for any of it. We're just going to get it right to them.
Damn.
And I was like, dude,
that
shit's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's good American right there.
good company.
Yeah.
And they make great shit.
No. Yeah. Can't beat it. Rattler, 300 blackout. Just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. This is beautiful. Thank you.
Well, Clint, that was an awesome story, man. Thank you for sharing all of that. And it was an honor to interview.
No, back at you. It's great to just be here with you finally. And I appreciate the voice. Probably the only one I'm going to do for the rest of my existence. So this is podcast, interview, last one, done.
Right on, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
God bless.
Yeah, I do too.
No matter where you're watching the Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.